Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, football edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, BSN Sports. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today on the show by Keith Brown, AJ Fairchild, and Tony Fairchild. So, guys, thanks for coming on today. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir. It sure has.
It's been nice to get back into football season here. The college starting up, high school started this past weekend. Love it.
Summer just wants to hang on. Like the hottest week of the entire summer is right now in week 2.
Even in here, it's a little bit warm, so we got a fan rolling in the back, and but we're still staying cool. So It doesn't take much to get me sweating either. So
we could go. It was in the 70s. It was like, okay, this is fall football weather. And now it's back. It's in the 90s. It's like, okay, hang on.
Hey, I've already got my acclimation period after being in Mexico. It was literally this temperature, 104 degrees with the heat index all week when we were there. So this is just like we're back in Mexico again. So
well, that's this week here. Having problems with getting practices canceled and scrimmages canceled and things like that because of the new OHSAA rules against certain temperature thresholds. I know, Coach, you had your scrimmage canceled today because of the heat, which, opinions aside, that was wild to hear because in my day, we were practicing in the middle of 105 degrees. We just took more water breaks, but we kept at it. So to hear games are getting canceled because that's 93, 94 degrees is kind of
the thing that gets me about that threshold is it's so low.
Yeah.
What they call normal activities is basically 80 degrees. If it's got to be below 80 degrees to consider normal activities. Once it gets to 90, there's no outdoor activities and no indoor activities unless it's air conditioned.
Oh, wow.
So it's like pretty much shut you down.
We're talking about August in Ohio, we've been blessed that it's been below 85 degrees, the last couple of weeks. So, realistically, this week's weather is average for August in Ohio.
I do have to laugh because Tony brought up off air. He goes, what does Texas do with it being hot all the time? And I just thought, I said, you know what Texas does is they build multi-million-dollar facilities.
They do.
That's true.
I just saw the other day, there was another high school that it was literally an half indoor, half outdoor facility. The whole wall, the one wall of this indoor, dome would retract. And so they could practice indoors, outdoors, whatever.
Gosh.
It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And I think some of those stadiums, they said they're like $20 to $30 million that they've spent on these, and that's for high school. That's unbelievable. But Texas football is a whole nother level than Ohio football. So.
We were talking about it yesterday. We did have practice yesterday, but we were just in helmet and shoulder pads. That was the rule. And I said, what do they do? Like college football, they're always down there on the sideline on the turf. Oh, they got a temp thermometer there. Oh, it's 125 degrees on the turf. What are you doing then? Stop the game. We got to stop because it's over 90 degrees. I don't know. But it is what it is. It's to keep the kids safe, and that's what we're about. So,
and I think safety comes into more educating the players on how to be safe rather than trying to make a bunch of rules to hide the problem. If you get kids to understand that hydration off the field is more important or as important as hydration on the field.
Correct.
We wouldn't have those problems, I don't think. A lot of the cramping would be gone. A lot of the heat issues would be faded because kids would just understand that water is a part of what you got to be doing.
Yeah, Logan, you were just saying
I just said that to these guys, right before we went on air. I said, I had my brother, and it was last year, I think, and it was similar to what it is now, heat-wise. Yep. And the first two questions I asked him, because he was complaining about cramping and not feeling good, I said, what did you drink and what did you eat? And today, and then I said the prior days leading up to this.
Yep.
And his answers weren't what they should have been. And I said, well, there you go. There's your answer. I said, you need to be hydrating and you need to be eating good, well, days prior to leading up to this. That's what they stress at you all the time. We got to college. You had guys carrying around gallon jugs everywhere you went on campus. So.
Yeah, the hydration doesn't start on game day. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, you're already way behind.
100%.
But the thing that the other thing that I don't understand is back in the day when we went out to practice, we were practicing like AJ said. It was 100 degrees outside. You're outside practicing. It didn't matter, and we didn't have Gatorade and Powerade and all that.
Water
stuff.
from the hose on the sideline.
We had water from the little spigot well thing that you turned on, and there was nothing in it, just water. So
did you guys ever get those salt tablets? I've heard stories of, I guess they used to hand out salt tablets or something for that
too, but we never had any of that stuff. That was for the bigger schools.
All right. Well, we'll get going. We got a lot of stuff to get to today, but I'm glad to be back with you guys. I know we always have a blast with this, so glad to get back on a routine and start talking some football. So let's get things rolling. We're going to look at how we did for last week's picks first. So there were some upsets, you could say, in week 1. I myself ended up finishing first with a 13-4 record. Second was Tony with a 12-5 record. Third, tied, was Keith and Matthew with an 11-6 record, and AJ in last with a 10-7 record. So unfortunately, AJ has the last spot to start off the year. But usually I give whoever was first a little moment to talk, but I feel awkward giving it to myself. I feel like that didn't happen too often last year, but I did finish towards the top at the end. But I guess my strategy was I just kind of looked at how teams were last year, and I did spend a fairly decent amount of time on looking at who they brought back and returned and this and that. But I think that really kind of helped set the tone for my picks. There's a couple that really caught me off guard. The Antwerp-Montpelier game, we all had Montpelier. And then the Delta and Ayersville game, that was another game we all had wrong. So I think those were two that stood out to me that kind of really shocked me, and I guess would consider maybe an upset. So anyways,
watching the score for that Ayersville game and didn't expect that one to turn out as high as it did. I'm sure covered a little bit, but there were a lot of not only like upsets, but really, really lopsided scores that I definitely didn't expect.
And two games that really paid off for me was the Wauseon-Fairview game. I had Fairview. Tony had Fairview too.
Yep.
And I'll spend a quick minute because we'll get into them later. But I'm buying in on Fairview. I don't know about you guys, but they're looking pretty good. I know we've been talking them up quite a bit on the preseason kickoff show. Talked to Coach Rakes. It's looking like they're shaping up to be a pretty solid team this year. So definitely glad I rode the Apache train week one. And the other big game, I didn't realize that I was the only one that picked Fort Recovery over Wayne Trace. Yeah. So anytime you play one of those schools down south, that's a tough out. Plus they were at home as well. So those are kind of two big games, additional games that really helped me out. So let's go ahead. We're going to get into week one game recaps, and we have quite a few games to look at. The first game we're going to look at is the NWO Sports Co-Game of the Week, and we were at this game last Thursday, so fortunately, there's a couple Thursday games during the week. Always love a good Thursday game to start the season because that allows us to go to another game with us broadcasting all the Tenora games throughout the season with Tenora Rams Live. So that was Pandora Gilboa at Columbus Grove. Columbus Grove ended up coming away with that one 35-7. And guys, we were all there. What were your initial thoughts of that atmosphere? I know we had talked, and I had released the most intimidating stadiums in Northwest Ohio. Columbus Grove got the nod at number one. So what were your guys' thoughts?
For me, it was everything that it lived up to be. That's actually the second time that I've been there. The first time it was probably 30 degrees and we froze to death, but this was a perfect standalone game. Fantastic crowd. Atmosphere was great going in. Student section was fired up. Band was fired up. The Pandora Gilboa side was full. I mean, it was just a fantastic high school football atmosphere. Everything that Northwest Ohio football is about.
And one other thing I want to add too is, you said Pandora side was full. Patrick Henry players were there too.
Right.
We had walked by and they were asking me about, just what I thought of the game and what the score would be. And I thought they were initially Pandora Gilboa players or fans at first until I looked and they asked, "What's your prediction for week 3?" I said, "Week 3? What do you mean?" And they said, "For Patrick Henry." And I saw on their shirt it said Patrick Henry. I just caught me off guard, when you're not in that mindset. So that was kind of funny as well. But Keith and I were there in 2020 to cover Columbus Grove versus Sonora. Had you and AJ ever been to Columbus Grove's facility before?
Nope.
So what were your guys' initial thoughts?
I loved it. I think it's a beautiful facility, and I was walking up there, and I had been there before. I just didn't know why. I'm like, man, this looks familiar, and I realized it was when my daughter was running cross country there once. But I'd never been there for a football game. But great atmosphere, like Keith said. Student section was pumped up. The new lights that Columbus Grove put in, they finally got those working.
Those are really cool
as it got darker and flashing them around, and the fans really got into that, which is cool. So I loved it. It was a good atmosphere and a kind of a lopsided game, but it was still a fun game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with it being lopsided, like you said, it was fun to watch because of the environment, and that's what gets people coming out to those games. Is you can have a bad season or a good season or whatever, but if you have the engagement with the fans, it just makes it more fun to be there, and you could definitely feel that in Columbus Grove.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to bring up one little funny moment. So we're driving to the game, and I'm hauling so I got back from Mexico on Thursday, got to Detroit, took forever to get through customs and border security or whatever, and we stood in line forever. So I got out of to our car in Detroit at 3:30. So I'm busting butt to get home in Defiance. Hurry up, grab everything. Of course, when we got there, camera, microphones, everything, we're going to do a little pregame show. Of course, none of that works when we get there.
Nothing.
Never mind that. But we're probably 20 minutes out, and my phone's hooked up to Apple CarPlay or whatever, and it pings, and I see Coach Andy Schaefer on there. I go, what the heck? I say, this is like 20 minutes before game time. We're right down the road. And he goes, you guys were supposed to be on Pandora Gilboa's the away side first. Forget that. Come over to the winning side. So I thought that was hilarious. So, Coach Schaefer, he's a good guy, and I just thought that was awesome. So I think no doubt anyways, I think we would have gone to the Columbus Grove side regardless. Yeah. But, that was pretty funny. So we'll get back to the game here. So looking at this, at halftime, Columbus Grove was up 28-0. They had a strong lead on the game. Grove had an opportunity to score in the first half, but happened to fumble inside the 10-yard line getting ready to score. Looking at total offense, Columbus Grove had 320 yards, 182 rushing. Pandora Gilboa, 240 yards of total offense with 128 rushing. Looking at the turnover battle, Columbus Grove had one with that fumble. Pandora Gilboa, 3 interceptions. Looking at some top players of note from Columbus Grove, running back Trenton Barraza, learned his nickname is Bobby. I kept on hearing Bobby. And I didn't know who the heck they were talking about. And it was Trenton Barraza. And so I messaged him, was it today or yesterday? I said, Trenton, I got to ask you, why did they call you Bobby? And he said that was his dad's name back in the day when he played. I believe he said he played on the 2003 state championship team. Awesome. He was a big dude, a big fullback, but everyone calls him Bobby. So I just thought that was awesome. Now we know why they call him Bobby. So he had a really good game. 13 carries, 100 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Quarterback Landon Best, another solid performance. And I've said it before too, this kid is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the area, and he's just a junior. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. But Landon Best was 6 of 7, 86% completion percentage, 138 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 7 carries for 32 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Wide receiver Trevin Baxter, 2 receptions, 69 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Wide receiver and tight end Brady Basinger, 2 receptions, 27 receiving yards. And I tell you what, he was a kid that really kind of stood out to me. A nice looking athlete with a big frame. And the kid's just a sophomore. So guys, we were all there. Thoughts on the Columbus Grove and Pandora Gilboa game?
It went the way I thought it was going to go. And it didn't really, we knew, I think we all thought Columbus Grove was definitely going to dominate. And, coming back from last year, they didn't miss a beat. They just pretty much controlled it from start to finish.
Yeah. I want to point out here with Landon Best, he only threw 7 times, completed for 6, but still had 138 passing yards. That's over 20 yards per completion. That's massive in a game like this, and definitely helped propel that a little bit.
Yeah, big rivalry win for Columbus Grove. Not a great game by Trent Barraza. I think his biggest carry was actually called back because while blocking the back where he ran to the far side. Reversed his field and, probably ran for about 40 yards and they called that back. But, Landon Best. Fantastic game. Levi Schrader with that awesome one-handed batted interception, I believe. Took it to the house for a score. It seems like when Pandora Gilboa seemed like they were clicking on offense, they got a couple successful first downs, short passing game was starting to work. Then the Grove defense would just collapse and they eliminated that altogether. So fantastic win for Columbus Grove, and it was great. Even after the game, the coaches came up to us, Coach Coles and Ned. They make you feel just warm and welcome.
The hospitality was unbelievable. Yes. So, Columbus Grove I've said it before, they're awesome to follow. Yep. Not only coaches, players, fans, everyone, but the coaching staff treats us very well.
Very.
So that was good to talk to them and talk to Ned too. Yep. So. It was just an awesome time. But a couple other guys that had a couple big plays was Trevin Baxter. He had a nice interception that kind of jumped up and caught over on the sideline. And then the other player was Gavin Barraza. He had another interception too. But those guys, they were ball hawks on defense all night long.
Gavin's going to have a heck of a future in front of him.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, I just want to go back to AJ. You kind of touched on Landon Best a little bit, but I said, I think I told you guys at the game, I said, that offense complements him very well, and it sets him up for success. He said a lot of the plays that they run, pass plays, they're not always hitting the deep bombs, but they're running play action. They're running, some shorter routes, routes that are high successful completions or that have high completion percentages. And it really goes to show him that, it may not be flashy, but it works and it works well. And it took him for a deep playoff run last year, but Coach Roney and, the Columbus Grove coaching staff, they do an excellent job on offense and defense. Coach Coles on defense, obviously they had another shutout against Pandora Gilboa too. So just solid on both sides. I think this team is going to be really, really good this year.
Yep.
Yeah, they were throwing those short passes, Logan, and I think you mentioned it for Thursday night, and that letting those good receivers get yards after the catch.
Yep.
So they were throwing them on those crossing routes, and those guys were picking up 5, 10, 15 yards after the catch. So, yeah, very successful.
And one thing we saw from being on sidelines, like the Columbus Grove staff will not let you settle for anything but the best. I mean, they're going to expect 110% of everybody every single play. So,
and they coach them up. They're very valid points.
Yes.
They're not the coaches that, some coaches just scream to scream, and they're not really explaining things. But I said there was a play, and I had it marked down on here. Trent Barraza, we all know the kid's athletic. He's one of the best players in the area. But sometimes he gets away with things, running laterally. And I said, there was a play that he got tackled on, and I said, right there, that's where you'll get coached up instead of, going east and west. Stick your foot in the ground, get vertical, go north and south.
Yep.
And what do you know? Very next play, Coach Schaefer is over there on the sideline, and he's yelling, Bobby, Bobby. And that's, again, where we heard Bobby, Trent Barraza. But it told him exactly that. He said, stick your foot in the ground and get vertical right away. And he started doing that after that. So I thought that was very impressive. So, all right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. We're going to look at the other NWO Sports game of the week, and we're looking at Defiance at Napoleon. And this one was a good one. I wish we could have been at this game as well. So it never fails that, probably 90% of the time, this is going to come down to, the last quarter, last play. And it did just that, went into overtime. Napoleon came out winners 35-34. This game was tight in the first half, of the score being 22-14 with Defiance leading. Defiance had an opportunity to win at the end of regulation, but missed the extra point. Again, we talk about how crucial that third aspect of the game is in special teams. This game went into overtime where Defiance got the ball first, and they scored after 5 plays on a 4-yard Anthony Wilder run. The Bulldogs decided to go back. They went for 2. They attempted a halfback pass from Anthony Wilder to Cohen Stockman in the back of the end zone, but he was pushed out of bounds and broke up by a nice play by Hayden Gherkin of Napoleon. And we got to watch that the last, probably all of overtime, I think we pretty much watched in the car on the way home from the Tenor Liberty Center game. So that was a really good, nice play by Hayden Gherkin. One point with that, I actually went back and watched this play on replay, and I thought it would have been great to see that play, but throw it back to Defiance quarterback Noah Gomez. I don't know if you guys went back and watched this at all, especially with as dynamic of a player as he is, and he can catch too. He was standing wide open. He was actually jumping up because he was so excited. But if they would have just threw it back to him, there was no one left on the Napoleon defense on that left side of the field. Everyone had ran over to the right because Wilder, he got the ball and was rolling to the right looking to pass. But if he would have threw it back, oh man, he would have probably scored. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. But this game was also played without Defiance starting quarterback Brez Zipfel and without Napoleon wide receiver Parker Woods. So both were huge contributors on their teams last season and are expected to be this season as well. Looking at total offense, Defiance had 320 yards, 245 rushing. They really pounded the rock. Napoleon, 345 yards of total offense with 250 passing. Looking at the turnover battle, Defiance had 1 with a fumble, Napoleon 2 with 1 interception and 1 fumble. And Napoleon kicker Carson Marroquin came up with the game-winning extra point at the end of the game. So an awesome job by him coming up in clutch moments. Looking at a few of the top players, Napoleon running back George Eggers, he had himself a game. 19 carries, 80 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He had 5 receptions for 65 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. So this guy had 5 total touchdowns in this rivalry game. Unbelievable job. Wide receiver defensive back, we always know Trey Rubenstein. He always balls out. He had 12 receptions, 108 receiving yards, 2 carries for 3 rushing yards. So they tried getting him, but again, we know teams are going to try to lock up Trey. They know he is, that guy on that offense and defense too. Quarterback Owen Espinoza had a nice game. Threw the ball 40 times, completed 30 of those for 75%. 250 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns and 1 interception. On the flip side, looking at Defiance, running back Anthony Wilder, 18 carries, 103 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 3 receptions for 15 receiving yards. Running back Abel Rubio, 16 carries, 85 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he had 2 receptions for 12 receiving yards. And then quarterback Noah Gomez, did a solid job for someone who, wasn't looked at as the starting quarterback coming in. A very efficient playing quarterback, and he completed 15 of 20 for 75%, 75 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown to Brady Borton. Gomez also had 4 carries for 57 rushing yards. So very solid performance from him. He didn't have any turnovers. He managed the game well, but he also had a huge play to keep Defiance alive in the game with under a minute to go in the fourth quarter. Defiance lined up with quarterback Noah Gomez. He was at wide receiver, split out to the right, and they tried to run a double pass, but things kind of broke down, and he really showed off his athleticism. He couldn't get the pass off, so he took off running. He ended up gaining 41 yards, which helped to lead Defiance scoring and tying the game up, and that was on 4th down too. So an absolute huge play. So guys, what were your thoughts on the Defiance at Napoleon game?
Bit of a crushing loss for Defiance there. They had a chance to sweep. That senior class had a chance to sweep them, and very, very much could have. They just came up just short. And that's a heartbreaker. But on the flip side of that, I'm sure it's a fantastic feeling for the seniors on Napoleon side to finally break that streak. They're going to be the ones that are known to break that losing streak against Defiance for the last couple of years. So good game, start to finish. It sounds like.
Yep. Yeah, it's a heartbreaker for Coach Cooper. I mean, if you're Coach Cooper, hey, it's a loss. You just can't let that define your season. Right. Go back Saturday, prepare for the next Friday night. You just can't let the boys have their head down and just let that go into practice. And Coach Cooper probably cut that off Saturday morning, and we just got to move on. But a heck of a game. Actually, we could have stopped and watched the overtime on the way back from Liberty Center. Logan's like, maybe we should stop.
I didn't think about it until we were already past there. I'm like, man, I should have stopped. If I thought about it while we were still going by, I would have pulled off there. And we watched halftime.
A huge kick by Carson American in overtime. But if you're American standing on the sidelines where Defiance just missed their extra point that could have won the game, like I don't know what thoughts are going through that kid's mind, but he stepped up there and nailed it for the win. So congratulations to him. But for where Coach Swery and the Wildcats started last year, 0-4, and rebounded to make the playoffs, this is a huge win for them.
I think too, going into this game, Napoleon has lost the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And for those kids, like Espinoza and Rubenstein and Woods, those guys that have played through multiple years and they've had to let those losses fester, year after year after year. There's no way, those kids with all their might, even George Eggers with his performance too, we're going to lose to Defiance this last season. Obviously George Eggers, he's a younger guy too, but, both teams played their hearts out, but it's just one of those things. I don't think that Trey Rubenstein or Espinoza or want to go down with, having the tag of losing to Defiance all 4 years. So, that's just kudos to Coach Tyler Swery and Napoleon Wildcats, because that's kind of been a monkey on the back, the last few years, especially with the slow starts Napoleon's had, not only the first game, but, the first few games. But, that lines Napoleon up for, a successful season. They have some really good talent, so I'm curious to see where they go with that. So,
yeah, I was talking to some people at work that were at that place, and they said that place was rocking. Said it was a packed house. Said it was just jammed with people. So, the atmosphere was obviously there. And then you send the game into overtime, makes it even better. So it's just a good Friday night football game.
Yeah, I think I saw the attendance too on the post game stats, and I don't know if they have some kind of system that registers all the people that go, but I think they said about 5,500 people. So
wow,
that's a pretty solid crowd for a Friday night football.
Yeah, solid 50-50.
Yeah, that would be. But that was quite a good game, and obviously, a lot of people went to that one. So another one I wish we could be at. Someone asked me the other day, are you going to go to any more Columbus Grove games? I said, we won't be able to till playoffs if we are. But I said, I wish there was like 50 of us so we can go to literally all these games from around the area. But this was another great game. Let's move on to the next game here. Looking at Wauseon at Fairview. Again, this one was a good one for the Apaches. Wauseon ended up losing this one, going over to Fairview 12-30. An excellent job by the Apaches, coming up with a huge win and playing up to the expectations they had coming into this year. First actually win for Fairview in the Tribe Bowl since 2018. So
wow.
Been a long time for the Apaches. Fairview outscored Wauseon 22-8 in the first half. Going into the game in this season, this is kind of what I think myself and a lot of people are envisioning out of a Fairview team. And I truly believe winning the first game over a school like Wauseon is monumental for, a 2024 Apache season. Now I know people are going to say, Wauseon's not the same team of the past and this and that, but, Wauseon still, they're typically always a solid school. They're a bigger school too. And not only that, it's just kind of getting that confidence too. Starting off your season 1-0, that's a lot better starting off 1-0 than 0-1. So, that was a huge week 1 win for the Apaches. Another talking point I kind of wanted to mention was Fairview's offense. Everyone always talks about it all the time, but I just wanted to take a minute to applaud the efforts of Fairview's defense. A job well done by defensive coordinator and Coach Rakes. 12 points given up to Wauseon, and 6 of those came late in the fourth quarter with 57 seconds left, and I'm sure the backups were in. So, an excellent job by those guys. Looking at a couple key players here. Fairview, quarterback William Zedike was 13 of 18, 72%. 247 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He did have 1 interception. 13 carries, 77 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Gavin Mead, 6 receptions, 104 receiving yards, 3 carries for 25 rushing yards. Wide receiver Logan Ollinger, 4 receptions, 60 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He had 6 carries for 17 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So he finished with 3 total touchdowns for the game. Excellent job out of those guys. Wauseon, running back Otis Flowers, 2 carries, 57 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Landon Ballard, 7 carries, 46 rushing yards. Quarterback Cale Albright, 4 of 8, 50%, 62 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He did have 1 interception. And then wide receiver Wyatt Smith had 1 reception for 30 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. So, guys, what were your thoughts on this game? I know there's a lot of talking points here.
Shocked. I mean, just didn't think Wauseon would get it handled. I think Fairview did a good job handling them. And I didn't think Wauseon would get handled like that by Fairview. I knew, we talked Fairview's going to be better, but just kind of shocked at how well Wauseon or Fairview handled them, and didn't realize Wauseon went back to their running the ball. And when you get down games, you got to go back to the throw. You know what I mean? You got to go back to throwing the ball. So if they're going to stick to the wing tee or not, we'll see.
Yeah, and going off a comment you made earlier, Logan, that Wauseon, whether they're having a down year this year as they kind of rebuild a little bit or not, whatever people say on the outside, they're still a middle of the road NWAL school, which is traditionally very solid. I mean, even last year, Wauseon was still a fairly solid team, and they're going to continue to be a solid team. And no offense to Fairview, but the last few years, they've been definitely on the bottom end of like the GMC, with last year being a little better. It kind of speaks volumes to where Fairview has grown more than anything. I don't think it's something for Wauseon to freak out about. I think they just need to get back into the groove next week, and I guess this week here, and get back to what they're used to. But I think Fairview is starting to show some growth, and maybe a threat for like the GMC.
Yeah, as you guys already said, I mean, that's a huge win at Fairview over a quality Wauseon program. Scored 22 points in the first quarter. So you come out at home with a bang, you put your foot in the ground, and you just go to town, boys. And as Logan said, I think Fairview's defense probably averaged 35 points against last year, and you come out in week 1 and throw a shutout against, one of the better Wauseon teams, but still a quality Wauseon team. That's just going to build confidence not only for your team, but your defense as well. And again, Fairview's just 1 season away from not winning a game. They were 0-10.
I know, it's crazy.
So, I mean, to come out in 2024 and respond with an opening season win over the Wauseon Indians like this could, I think, probably even help themselves as far as confidence. They're still young. They're coming into a new season. They got all these expectations. How are we going to come out, on week 1? And I think they just answered all questions right away. 22 points in the first quarter and didn't look back.
Yeah, I know defense was kind of a shocker. Obviously, we know Fairview has a high-scoring offense. But another kind of interesting point was Fairview established the run game, 156 rushing yards, and Coach Rakes, I saw his post-game comments and said he was pleased with being more balanced on offense. So obviously we know they like to spread things out and throw the football, but to be balanced with that offense, that can open up the passing game quite a bit as well. So that was kind of another huge point. But going back to my previous statement earlier, about this being a big confidence booster for the Apaches. Not only that, but computer points and seeding. With Wauseon being a Division IV team, they get a lot of first-round points with that. So even if Wauseon, let's say if they at least get 3 to 4, wins down the road playing it the NWAL, there's some bigger schools in NWAL. So, that could really pay dividends for the Apaches it comes seeding and playoff time if they have the season, obviously, that they're expected to. So. All right, let's move on. We're going to go to the next game, another rivalry game here. Edgerton at Eden. Eden ended up winning this one 36-26. Before we get into anything further, just want to say, we send our condolences and prayers to the Edgerton football team community and the young man that has just passed. Obviously, it's not an easy subject to talk about, but, we want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. There's been a lot of stuff going around lately, not only here, but in other communities too. So, it's always good to give your support to those communities, and power of prayer is very powerful, especially with a lot of those that are struggling right now. So be sure to definitely keep Edgerton, the community, the family, the football team, and everyone involved. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers. So, all right, we'll kind of go into the game here. Looking at Edgerton, they actually led at halftime 20-7. Total yards for the game, Edgerton had 454 total yards with 233 rushing. Eden had 412 with 308 passing. Turnovers for the game, Edgerton had 2, 1 fumble, 1 interception. Eden had 1 interception. Looking at Eden, some top players. Quarterback Kyler Sapp, we know he's another good quarterback in the area. 31 of 54, 57%. 337 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He did have 1 interception. Also carried the ball 10 times for 69 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown. 5 total touchdowns for the game. Wide receiver and defensive back Kendall Briggle had himself a really big game, kind of a new face that has kind of showed himself here to start the 2024 season for the Bombers. 13 receptions, 165 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had 6 tackles and 1 interception on defense. Wide receiver Max Radaball, another quality game from him. He had a nice season last year, 12 receptions, 115 receiving yards with 1 receiving touchdown, and linebacker Cohen Hulbert led the team with 11 tackles and 1 hurry. Looking at Edgerton, running back and linebacker Joel Walkup, 16 carries, 167 rushing yards. He averaged 10.4 yards a carry with 1 rushing touchdown and 8 tackles on defense. A solid performance out of him. Wide receiver Scotty Krantz, one of the better wide receivers in the area, 6 receptions, 105 receiving yards, 1 touchdown reception. Quarterback and defensive back Maddox Baker was 15 of 21, 71%, 221 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, and he had 9 tackles on defense. And wide receiver defensive back Kellen Sanchez, 3 receptions, 52 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had 5 tackles and 1 interception on defense. So, guys, thoughts on the rivalry game here between Edgerton and Eden?
Big comeback for Eden. I think when we left Liberty Center, when we were doing the final rundown for area scores, I believe Edgerton was up by 2 touchdowns, I believe. We got in the car, and then I told Tony, is like, hey, my gosh, Eden's making a comeback. So he flipped on Andy Briggle and the boys on 100.9, and we listened to that a little bit on the way home. We had like 2 games going on at once in the vehicle. But, yeah, heck of a comeback by Eden. Kyler Sapp, he's going to set records, I think, that nobody thought would be broken over there at Eden. So big comeback win for the Eden Blue Bombers. Bombers. I still have that old school Blue Bombers in me.
The one thing about Kyler Sapp, he's putting up 337 yards passing, and he's only completing 57% of his passes. I would love to see what he would do if he started getting a lot more high percentage completion passes like we keep talking about. If he would start connecting with a few more of those and get up into like the high 60s, low 70s% on completion, I mean, he could have 400, 450 yard games, but nevertheless, 337 yards for a high school kid is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's the Route 49 rivalry, right?
Yeah,
they were talking about that, and Edgerton was playing well. I was kind of honestly just not disrespecting Edgerton, but I was shocked. I didn't think Edgerton was going to come out like that and coming out with with a 20-7 halftime lead, and was like, holy smokes, didn't expect that out of Edgerton. But Edgerton or Eden stayed the course and was able to make things happen and down the stretch, and was able to come out with a victory. But sure that was a fun game to go watch as well.
Yeah, and Edgerton was a team coming into the season. A lot of the GMC coaches, if you heard when we interviewed them, kind of looked at it as that sleeper team, if you want to say, in the Green Meadows Conference. So you still don't want to count the Bulldogs out.
Yeah,
because
definitely not.
They've got some quality players. You look at Joel Walkup. He's been a solid linebacker for them, and one of the better ones in the league for the last few years. Scotty Krantz, a good wide receiver, Maddox Baker. So the list goes on and on. So they have some good athletes. So Don't count Edgerton out,
No.
but Eden, they're going to win some ball games this year.
Yep.
Obviously, whenever you have a Bob Olin offense, you're going to throw up some points and you're going to really light up the scoreboard. But Eden's got some solid players too, so I think both these ball clubs, they'll win some games down the road. Let's move on to the next game. Another exciting game in the area. We're looking at Genoa at Archbold. Archbold ended up winning this one 27-14. Archbold was actually down 0-14 at halftime. They would go on to score 21 fourth quarter points and 27 total second half points to win the game, which is unbelievable. An interception by Archbold's Anderson Bentley returned for a 26-yard touchdown, sealed the game with 2:14 to go in the fourth quarter. Looking at total yards, Archbold had 300 with 202 passing. Genoa had 339 with 253 passing. Turnovers, Archbold had 1 fumble. Genoa had 4 with 3 interceptions, 1 fumble. You look at third down conversion, Archbold was 6 of 10, 60%. Genoa was 4 of 11 for 36%. Penalties, Archbold was a very disciplined team, and we obviously always know they're well coached under Coach Dominic. They only had 1 penalty for 5 yards. Genoa had 8 for 70. So talk about a huge difference there. Looking at some top players from Archbold. Quarterback Kurt Kruger, he's a newcomer in at quarterback this year. 15 of 23 for 65%, 194 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 4 carries, 15 rushing yards. Excellent job from him, especially, first year under the belt as quarterback. I just thought he did a very nice job leading back a comeback against Genoa. Running back Ryder Ryan was 14 carries, 71 rushing yards, 5.1 yards a carry, 7 receptions for 98 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And wide receiver Morgan Harris had 2 receptions for 58 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. So, guys, thoughts on the comeback win here from Archbold against Genoa?
My only question on this one is Genoa turned the ball over 4 times. When was those turnovers?
Yeah,
were they in the second half?
Fourth quarter there. Yeah,
that's a good question. I probably assume so. I'd have to go back and look at the stat sheet, but that would be my guess.
Lost the turnover battle big time, and just curious if that was what led to Archbold's comeback. But good job by Archbold to keep fighting.
Yeah, it's really hard when your defense works so hard to get their offense off the field, and then we're right back on it because now we have a turnover. It just starts killing the wind in the sails, and obviously allowed Archbold to make a huge comeback fourth quarter. But we're sitting there we've talked already about a couple other games, sitting there at halftime of the LC Tenor game, looking at scores. We're like, what in the world? A lot of teams we did not expect to be losing were losing, and others were winning. It was like, what is going on? And then we get done with that game, and the tables had flipped on a lot of these games. It's like, wow, well, something changed in the last few quarters.
Was it a full moon or?
I don't know.
Not sure.
Yeah, good game by Kurt Kruger. Set behind DJ Newman and Cade Brenner. Now it's his chance to shine as a senior, and came out firing. Solid game for Kurt Kruger, and mounted the comeback in the streaks win.
And I know coming into this year, there's a lot of question marks about the Archbold Ball Club. They didn't really know.
I think they had one of the more graduated classes in the area. They had 22.
Yeah, I believe they had a lot of seniors. A lot of really good athletes in that class. Jack Hurst and Chase Miller and Cade Brenner that had been there for a long time. So a lot of question marks, and people really didn't know what the Blue Streaks were going to be. But this game might show a lot out of them. It shows that they have a lot of grit, though, to bear down and come back. When you're down 0-14 at halftime, things aren't looking so great. But
right.
For them to go out, make halftime adjustments, and really bear down and get the job done, kudos to them and their staff. They did an excellent job, and they start off the season 1-0, which, like I said before, 1-0 is a lot better than 0-1. So excellent job by the Blue Streaks there. Let's move on to the next game here. We were all at this game. This was our broadcast game through Tenor Rams Live. This was Tenor at Liberty Center, and Liberty Center came away with this one big, 38-0. Halftime score, Liberty Center was up 35-0. Looking at total yards, Liberty Center had 452 yards of total offense, 256 rushing, which I think that stat's kind of interesting. That I would have thought
pretty much balanced.
75% of the offense typically is rushing.
Yeah.
But Tenor had only 188 yards of total offense, 124 passing. Turnovers, Liberty Center had 0. Tenor had 1 interception. Liberty Center had 10 players registering a rushing attempt. 2 of those were the starting quarterback. So that was another impressive stat. And Liberty Center had 18 players listed with 2 or more tackles for the game. So they've got some depth over there in Liberty. But looking at some top players, Liberty Center running back Garrison Cruz, 6 carries, 76 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 2 receptions for 77 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Defensive back and wide receiver Cam Colley, 5 tackles. He had the sole interception and turnover of the game. 2 receptions, 46 receiving yards. Running back Waylon Rentz, 1 carry, 62 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Running back Thomas Moeller, 7 carries, 70 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Then you had the quarterback duo of Grady Miller. He was 2 of 4 for 50%, 129 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Solid out of him. And quarterback Caden Kreinbrink was 4 of 4, 100% for 75 passing yards. Looking at Tenora, quarterback Dominic Graziani was 16 of 21, 76%, 151 passing yards. He led the team in rushing with 5 carries for 10 rushing yards, but ended up being sacked 4 times during the game. He did have 1 interception. Wide receiver Jacob Bishop, 5 receptions, 67 receiving yards. He was really kind of a highlight on that offense. When they needed a big reception, he came up with it. And defensive lineman Carter Radzik had him down for 9 tackles, which led the team. So a nice job out of him. But going back to this game, we could talk for a while. There's a lot of different points, but there's a couple things that stood out to me personally. One was I couldn't believe Waylon Rentz only had 1 carry for some reason. Like they have
third possession,
multiple running back after running back, like Garrison Cruz, Waylon Rentz, Thomas Moeller. It's like the list goes. Those are 3 quality running backs that they would probably be number 1.
Well, they're probably starters.
Probably starters on every single team around the area. And, they're all splitting carries. So I that was very impressive to me. The other thing was too, Dom for Tenora quarterback, he finished pretty solid, 16 to 21, 76%. We saw he had that 1 interception to Cam Colley, but we know Cam Colley, he's an all-Ohio defensive back. He's going to go out and get his. He ended up snagging that one over on the Tenora sideline. But pretty solid, at least the high completion percentage. We saw him make a lot of good decisions that game. But man, he was just getting pressured all game long, and that's tough. I think that was a big key. Is Liberty just brought the pressure on him, and especially in an offense where Tenora's bread and butter is ran through Dom Graziani. Whether that be reads, running the ball, throwing the ball. When you're getting pressured, it's hard to operate out of that. So I think those were some big keys. So guys, we were all there. What were your thoughts?
I guess for me, if I'm just a casual football fan and I don't know really anything about, say, Liberty Center, I just want to go watch a game on Friday night, then somebody told me that this entire offense and defense is basically brand new from a team that went to state last year, I would have just found that absolutely crazy. For like the 3rd straight year, graduations, and next year, graduations, there's no way they're going to be successful. They go to state. 2024, huge graduating class. First play of the game.
Touchdown.
Rentz, touchdown.
Back-to-back years for Liberty against Sonora.
First play, 2 straight years. First place from scrimmage was a touchdown, but you just don't miss a beat. They just.
And I will say that first play, back-to-back year, I know last year the game at Sonora was a little bit closer, but man, you could just tell it just. You hate to say it, but I think it did suck the life out of Tenora a little bit. First play of scrimmage, you're all juiced up, you're on defense. All right, we're gonna get a stop here. Boom, he knocks his head right off the goalpost for a touchdown. So it's just like, it's one of those things. It's tough. And especially when you play at Liberty, we ran some stats, and I can't remember. I'll look them up when you guys are talking about how tough it is to win at Liberty Center. Columbus Grove was another one. I think they had over the last 10 years, their win percentage at home was like 80-something%. So
I think you said something about over the last 4 years, the only game they've lost was the Archbold. Only regular season game they lost was the Archbold.
2022.
Yeah. Only game they've lost at home was the Archbold.
That's such a tough venue to play at.
That's nuts. But, Sonora's got a lot of stuff to fix. And AJ mentioned this Friday night. You go look at the game film. Did you really get your butts kicked that bad, or did you do things wrong? Were you not executing the way you're supposed to execute? Were you doing your job and just getting beat? I mean, was Liberty Center just the better team, or did you not execute?
Yeah. And that's huge. Yeah, absolutely. Because coming away from a loss like that, you can run away with your tail tucked between your legs. You can look at it and see what did you do right and take away good lessons from it. Like you said, knowing this Liberty Center team coming back, which Keith said, was all new offense and everything, but still they had 72 kids on their team to pick from. So they've got tons of athletes, heck of a program over there. So Tenora walking in there, I think everybody kind of was like, how's this game going to go? And then that first touchdown hits, and it's like, wow, that just drained everybody immediately. But you you get a chance to look at, like, everybody seems to be pretty healthy still. Last year we had several injuries coming out of that. And then, look at what happened up front. Were people just getting beat? Because I know some of those guys up front on Liberty Center, big, strong. They've got really, really good workout programs over there to build that strength. So they very well could have just been overpowering Tenora's offensive line. They might have been doing everything right, but in the end of the day, it may not matter. Yeah. So if they were doing everything right coming into the next week, I mean, don't change anything if you don't have to. You don't have to reinvent the wheel because the first game didn't look the way you wanted, especially against a team like, Liberty Center.
I thought Dominic played really well.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Lee played great. Jacob Bishop played great as a receiver, played great on special teams as far as a punter. He missed his 47-yard field goal, just went left.
A little short. Yeah.
So I mean, there's positives to take from this game. Defense, I thought, played as well as you could when Liberty Center scores 3 touchdowns on their first 5 plays, I think, from offense. But I don't think the boys never gave up. They were still out there trying. I mean, it's not like they just held their head down and went back to the sidelines. They were out there competing the whole time. This Liberty Center is just a better school.
Yeah, I mean,
it shows. Have more athletes. That's
what it boils down to. I'm gonna be that guy. All right. To me, the offensive line, defensive line needs some major work.
For Tenora?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
We're not big. And so we're putting guys in there that probably never played. I know, Sattler's playing guard, I think, right now. And, those guys he's a pretty good size. He's put on some size. I saw him. He's put on some pretty good size in the off season in the weight room and stuff. But just, again, I don't know if it's execution, just not going through our reads offensively. I mean, for Tenora to be successful, we're going to have to be able to run the ball a little bit. And that was non-existent. And Trenton DeLarber couldn't get any yards. I saw Devin Llewellyn come in, had some carries, didn't get any yardage. There was nowhere to go. And no fault of theirs, but there's just nowhere to go. So they definitely got to do some reinventing the wheel. As the AD said, don't reinvent the wheel. They got to do something offensively, on the line.
My mind's rolling right now because I've got so many things I want to talk about Tenora and Liberty Center. I'll name a few, but one, I think for Tenora, in order for them to be successful this year, the O-line and D-line, they've got to step up. Yep. Whether that is, knowing their assignment or just playing, till you hear the whistle blow. Even if you're not the most talented around, dang it, you're not going to get beat by effort. So I'd like to see 110% effort out of them. The other big thing too, I really liked Keith had brought up about Dom's play. I think the completion percentage goes out and shows a lot, how he's grown in the offense. He understands things.
And he threw the ball away.
That's what I was just getting to. I said you could really see that he understands the offense and he understands the game a little bit better because there was times that, he knew when to throw it away correctly. It was the right choice instead of tucking it and trying to make something and then he gets hurt or he fumbles. Right. The other thing was he avoided contact. There was a lot of good decisions I saw of when to tuck the ball and run. He picked up a couple, I think first downs and had a couple nice plays and he got out of bounds right away or he slid. He wasn't just trying to barrel his shoulder in there and pick up an extra yard or two. And especially he understands that because, he's the starting quarterback. He's got to protect himself. Obviously numbers are kind of scarce at Tenora. I mean, they're not terrible, but you got to stay healthy. It's a long season. We talked for Tenora, the first 3 games are a gauntlet for Tenora's non-conference. But, those are some points that I had. But, I think if they can work out the kinks in the O-line and the D-line and they can give Dom, a couple seconds back there in the pocket because he was running for his life all night long. I think they'll go out there and they'll have a pretty good season.
We did have some receivers open, like Keith mentioned, Bishop and Lee was getting open. The other guys, I've seen Owen Reynolds come in there for a couple plays there. The guys are getting open, but Dom doesn't have time to set his feet and look. As soon as he turns and looks, and all of a sudden now he's got to move, and that changes your entire perception of the field because now you're only seeing one section, and you try to keep your eyes downfield as much as you can, but when you're getting chased, and I tell you what, the last play Dom was in was a scary tackle, kind of took him down from behind, and he kind of went down awkward and come up gimpy, kind of limping a little bit, and that's a scary. It's like, oh, he got up and kind of like motioned right away that he was coming off, but he's practicing. So
one thing I wanted to kind of go. We've been talking a lot about this from the Tenora side, perspective, but I do want to go back to Liberty Center a little bit, talking about like Garrison Cruz.
I was just gonna bring him up next.
He's only a sophomore. He's a beast out there. We saw him. He's put on some size.
Put on some good weight too.
Yeah. He's gonna be a threat on that offense, big time coming down the road here. It was fun to watch going into playoffs because he doesn't sound like he played a lot last year. I mean, he was playing behind some studs,
right?
But he ended up getting in some time during playoffs. Ended up starting, I think, in towards the last couple games.
Yeah, down in Sydney, I think he was playing down there.
Yep, and it's cool because the way Liberty Center does things, for those that don't know, freshmen don't get their nameplates on their back. When you become a sophomore, that's when you start getting their name. So last year, he was one of the very few, if not the only, to not have a nameplate on. So to see that Cruz name come back out there again this year is awesome, especially in the position that he's in.
Yeah, and I think we kind of looked at each other after the game, and it's one of those things that can Liberty really reload like this year after year. I think there was something that was said that Liberty graduated probably 75, 80, 90% of their offense or something between the Cruz triplets and Amstutz and everyone else. And then they reload. And they've got 3 quality running backs this year, and Garrison Cruz, Waylon Rentz, and Thomas Moeller. So I don't know. Yeah. Liberty looks scary this year. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely. One more thing to talk about this game, and it has nothing to do with the game, but again, we mentioned it about Columbus Grove. Just treated fantastic by the staff there. Come up there.
100%.
The food, they feed us. I wish I would have got her name. I'd mention her name, but I don't know her name. They called her the food Nazi because don't touch her food.
She called herself that.
She did actually. She did. She was I'm the food Nazi, so don't but the food was fantastic, and they always treat us very, very well up there. And it was nice, hooking up with the Tiger Sports Live.
Those guys are always great to talk to. So I had to tease Scott Barrett a little bit too, because he was kind of poking at my top 10 most intimidating stadiums. Oh, of course, I got a lot of kickback from Liberty placing them at 2, but it's a toss up. Liberty's a great venue. So is Columbus Grove. Yep. But it was fun to talk to him, and we tease each other a little bit. But it was funny. As soon as we walked into Rex Lindgren Stadium, I think it was probably 2 or 3 of the assistant coaches from Liberty had brought that point up about Liberty being 2. And they said, oh, that's pretty bold of you being here and putting us at 2 like that. But it was all in fun nature. And that's exactly what it is. It's get people talking, promoting the kids. And that was just awesome to see too. So that was another point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, that does our announcing come over and goes, I can't believe they let you guys in here. We were all like, oh, we're incognito. We got our Tenora Rams live stuff on tonight. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, when you guys were doing the game setup, Logan and AJ, me and Tony went out the back press box out on that little balcony right there and just watched all the people that were coming in. It was a fantastic scene just to see the way Liberty Center people interact and the way they come in the stadium and just the amount of people that were outside the stadium.
Yeah.
And
it's truly a thing there.
To be in the same box right there next to to Mark and his crew up there doing their broadcast was a lot of fun, and got to learn a new phrase for getting your butt whooped. It's road graded, which we end up hearing a couple of times.
Heard on the Defiance game,
Defiance, the polling game, that game. Road graded is the new term
apparently
for this season. All right, but yeah, it was. There's a lot of good things, from that game, and I think, like you said too, Tony, if you can take things away and learn from mistakes, I think Tenora will be all right the rest of the season.
Absolutely.
So let's move on. We got a few other games to review. Antwerp at Montpelier. This one was kind of, I think, a shocker to us. Yeah. Obviously, we all had Montpelier picked, but Antwerp won 34-0. Halftime score: Antwerp had 14, Montpelier had 0. Total yards: Antwerp, I didn't get that put in. Montpelier 184 yards, 102 rushing. Turnovers: Antwerp had 0, Montpelier had 2 interceptions, and Montpelier had 2 interceptions within the 8-yard line. So that's a tough break for the Locomotives. Yeah. Top players from Montpelier: defensive line, Logan Pontius, 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Running back Griffin Cooley, 9 carries, 55 rushing yards. He had 2 receptions for 14 receiving yards. Looking at Antwerp, quarterback Derek Hines, a newcomer, filling in the shoes of Carson Altimus. So it was 12 of 17. Solid 71%, 162 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 5 carries for 35 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Other quarterback, Hampton Rogie, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, was 2 of 2, 25 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. So nice job by both those quarterbacks. Wide receiver Caden Winslow, 4 receptions, 44 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And wide receiver Jackson Jones, 4 receptions, 48 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Nice job out of him. I believe Jackson was one of the kids that came on the kickoff show. So nice job out of him. But guys, thoughts on the Antwerp at Montpelier game?
I'm going to point out the Derek Hines thing. We mentioned that during our kickoff show that he was an O-line last year. He was a lineman and come in and did a fantastic job at quarterback. So, there's kids out there that are playing guard this year, just hold your own.
But he does have baseball experience though too. That was something that coach brought up, and so he can sling the ball a little bit.
Yeah, but very shocked. Well,
yeah, that goes for all players. Like, kind of started there. You got to fill the roles you're asked to fill. You don't know where you're going to end up, whether, in 2 weeks or next year or whatever. We looked at it with Patrick Henry last year too. Having a couple of injuries, things like that. Things can shift and change very quickly. So being able to be flexible and not necessarily be set on a single spot, do what you got to do to get on the field, because, you could end up making a career out of that spot. So.
Right. I think we all said it earlier. This is probably one of the most shocking, if not the most shocking score we saw Friday night. Was Antwerp just kept adding and adding and adding, kept waiting for Montpelier to come back. They just never did. And shout out to Caden Winslow. Not only offense did he have a good game at receiver, also intercepted the pass and took it back 97 yards.
Yeah.
So offense and defensive spectacular game by Caden Winslow. But we asked Coach Robertson, I guess I did, what would it mean for you to start 1-0 with a win versus Antwerp? I guess looking at the other end of the spectrum, if you're Antwerp and you come out and you beat a quality Montpelier team like this after the graduating class that you just saw leave, what does that do for you moving forward? So I think this just explodes your confidence.
Yeah, it's got to be a huge boost for those kids, because
everybody counted them out.
Yeah, everybody's like, Antwerp's knocking nothing out.
Yep.
You come out and you win.
And win big.
Yeah. Hey, don't count us out, boys.
That was at Montpelier too. So
we've talked too in the Green Meadows Conference. It's about as probably tight of a race as it's ever been.
Yep.
I think looking at it, I think a lot of the teams are very, very comparable, very level. I don't know that it's necessarily, the greatest athletes we've ever seen come through the conference, but a lot of quality players, and I think it's anyone's race for the most part. Obviously, I personally think Fairview's probably the front runner. That's what the preseason coaches poll was. But there's a lot of teams that are going to go out there and compete for a title this year. But I think Antwerp, obviously it shocked all of us. But that's definitely a confidence booster after losing that huge senior class last season, that Altimus and Brewer and Leachy and Cyrus Gale. I mean, the list goes on and on of all the quality players that they lost. And I think Coach Hale's done a really good job over there at, kind of blocking that outside noise out and just really focusing in on the team this year and what's to come. So excellent job out of the Archers. Let's move on to the next game. Another game that really, I think, shocked us, and I know shocked a lot of people in the area. This was Delta at Ayersville, and Delta came into the Pilots' hometown, and I brought something. I don't know what. Brought a lot of running yards, that's for sure. Delta ended up winning 55-6. The halftime score was Delta 35, Ayersville 0. Total yards, I didn't end up finding, I believe 368 rushing yards. This was a game I didn't have all the stats to. So Delta had 368 rushing yards. Looking at some top players from Delta, running back Landon Littermoot had himself a game, 14 carries, 73 rushing yards, 5.2 yards a carry. He had 4 rushing touchdowns, all in the first half. Running back and freshman Marcus Noggle, 3 carries, 104 rushing yard, 1 rushing touchdown, and 5 different Panthers scored rushing touchdowns. So it was just a running parade over there in Ayersville for the Panthers.
Oh.
Ayersville running back Torrin Knieven, 16 carries, 44 rushing yards, and running back Tucker Sproul, he had the sole touchdown with a 7-yard rushing touchdown. So guys, thoughts on the Delta at Ayersville game?
This is probably the second biggest surprising score last Friday night at Ayersville. Delta comes out. I believe they had a 21-0 lead after the first quarter. I think Coach Vickers is just one of those coaches you can just plug him in, and wherever he winds up, he's going to have a successful program.
I can say this after people reaching out and posting the hot takes. There is a lot of excitement around Delta and their program right now with Coach Vickers returning, a very successful coach. And Delta's, I think, they're gonna have something special going this year if they can keep this up. We know that Ayersville team, we know they lost a lot to graduation last year, but still they've got some quality players. And for Delta to come in and make a statement like that week 1,
that's That was huge to me. When I saw the final score, I mean, I knew they were getting beat up. Then I saw the final score. I thought, wow. And, right away I thought about, man, Coach Vickers came in and did something and got those kids' mind in the right spot, because, you don't beat people 55-6 if you don't get them playing the right way. And immediately must have taken over there and got those kids focused on, doing things the right way. And I would be honest, I was really surprised that Soren Knieven only had 44 yards. I was expecting something bigger out of him, but
we knew they graduated a lot of their offensive linemen.
Yeah.
That's something I asked Coach Mickey. How do you replace those guys? They have a strong offensive line tradition over there. Obviously, we know the chocolate milk and everything else that gets the kids excited, but they have some big boys over there. So I kind of thought they would kind of replace those. The guys from the past last year would kind of take some of the other guys under their wing and kind of really bring them up through the ranks, but. That's something that I think Ayersville, the last couple of years, they've really prided themselves on the running attack, and a really good running back in Soren Knieven too. But you definitely have to have the offensive line to do it.
Yeah. I mean, and they gave him 16 carries, and Delta obviously was set up to.
Yeah, I think when you get behind 21-0 right away, your running game pretty much gets eliminated.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah. But another shout out to Coach Vickers was, it's not like he's just a young coach on the scene.
Oh no.
Like the several interviews that I've seen him, he relates very well to the kids nowadays. You think of a older high school football coach that's been around the block forever, this big old grumpy burly guy, or do it my way or else. But he just seems to relate to the youth very well, and obviously got them to buy in this summer.
Yeah, I had a point later in the podcast, but I think he's coached 27, 28 years. That's a long time. So, but all right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll kind of breeze through some of these. A lot of these games there were some blowouts, but we'll review them. Hicksville at Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry won this one big, 47-6. Halftime, Patrick Henry was up 41-6. Total yards, Patrick Henry had 469 with 355 rushing. And AJ, we kind of talked about when you asked Coach Inselman, they're getting back to those rushing roots and that offense. And what did Coach Inselman say? That I don't think he'll ever kind of.
He said he'll always have a tight end.
He's
always going to have that wing tee or the tight end set, I guess.
Yep.
Said he got away from it for a few years there. He said he personally, as a coach, was not comfortable running more of a spread. So he said he went back to the tight end set and said he will never go back or never get away from it again. So,
yeah, running some smash mouth football over there and the Patriots. Hicksville had 156 total yards with 82 passing. Turnover battle. Patrick Henry had 1 with an interception. Hicksville had 1 with a fumble. Top players from Patrick Henry. Quarterback Lincoln Krieger, 5 of 8, 63%, 114 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He did have 1 interception. 6 carries for 103 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Running back Jaden Rudder, 7 carries, 122 rushing yards, 17.4 yards a carry with 1 rushing touchdown. Running back Grant Smith, 5 carries, 83 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Trent Johnson, 3 receptions, 48 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And then from Hicksville, quarterback Garrett Turnbull, 7 of 15, 47%, 82 passing yards, and 1 passing touchdown. Wide receiver Parker Bassett, 2 receptions, 42 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So, guys, thoughts on the Hicksville at PH game?
Solid performance by Hicksville. Aces came out, or the Patriots. Patrick Henry, the Patriots came out and took care of business. And I guess the most interesting thing to me was something that Coach Fairchild asked Lincoln, and he kind of snickered at it, did give him an answer. But then you look at the box score: Krieger kick, Krieger kick, Krieger kick, Krieger kick, Krieger kick. So I guess we got our answer.
Got our answer. Who's kicking the extra points, didn't we? Yeah,
well,
I mean, Lincoln Krieger, to me, he was at our football show, and he's a big kid, and he's definitely put on some size. He looks very athletic, nice quarterback, and puts up 114 passing, 103 rushing yards. And I just as you're reading through the stats there, they almost had 3 people over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Grant Smith had 83, but Lincoln Krieger is just went from wide receiver to quarterback last year with the injury, and it's just, he's just taken it and ran with it.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. That's another kid that was not in the quarterback position, less than a year ago. It was about halfway, I think week 4, week 5, that he made that switch, and then continued into the playoffs, which was awesome, which also benefits him for this year because he got a few extra games under his belt.
Basically played a whole season.
Yeah, almost a whole season after starting midway through. And then comes out this year, and he's kind of keeping the pace. He's not that high output. They're not throwing him a lot, but the ones he does connect with, he's 20-yard gains. or more. So he's keeping that dual threat going.
I had another point I wanted to bring up. Grant Smith playing running back this year, a big back, 6'3", 220 back there in the backfield. I watched some of his highlights from the game and him carrying the ball. It's scary. He not only his size, but he's got speed too. And obviously we know he's a heck of a defensive lineman. First team All-Ohio as a sophomore. I watched this film. That was the first time I've actually got to see him play in a game. He has the best twitch, like quickness, get off on the defensive line that I've seen in quite some time in Northwest Ohio. And that's scary. Like, obviously I played offensive line, and to see his get off and what he has on the defensive line, oh my goodness, opposing teams better watch out and plan on double, triple teaming him, because he's going to be a menace again this year. He looks huge too at 6'3", 220. And him in the backfield, geez, he had a couple of those carries. The one that he had for a long rushing touchdown, he busted off. It was like 50, 60 yards, but he hit that hole and he was gone. No one was catching up to him. But that's another threat this year on the offensive side of the ball. I think getting the ball in Grant Smith's hands is going to be huge. And on defense, again, he's probably going to be one of the best defensive players in the area as well. So, I mean, there's a reason why he's getting some looks from, Division I schools and top tier schools. And I think it's only going to grow in the next few years, especially as he develops into his frame, puts on more muscle mass, things like that. If you take that frame at 6'3", 220, as a junior, if he puts on another, 20, 30 pounds within the next year, holy smokes, he's going to be a nightmare. He may be, I don't know, by his senior year, he may be in the running for, player of the year in the division. So I don't know. I know it's a bold statement, but I mean, I see the athleticism. I see the potential out of this kid, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. Let's move on to the next game. Evergreen at Elmwood. We're looking at Elmwood ended up winning this one 35-7. Evergreen led 14-0 at half. Total yards, Evergreen had 259, 172 passing. Elmwood, 147, 82 rushing. Turnover battle, Evergreen had 0. An excellent job from them. Elmwood had 3, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble. Third down conversions, Evergreen did a nice job. 6 of 10, 60%. Elmwood was 5 of 13, 38%. So definitely a tale of two ends there. Evergreen, quarterback Bryce Bolger had a nice game, 9 of 14, 64%, 172 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Wide receiver Will Roots, 4 receptions, 81 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And running back Max Mossing, 11 carries, 32 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. 1 reception for 48 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. So guys, if you're a Viking, it's nice to be getting the season started off with a win. And for Coach Bach, we talked him on the coaches show, and obviously there's been some instability in the program over the last couple of years, and now he's been there for 2 years. All the other coaches were there for a quick short stay. I think Coach Bach's going to be doing some good things over there in Evergreen. So guys, thoughts on year 2 under Coach Bach?
Yeah, it's got to feel good coming out second year, get to win first game. It's got to feel great, and just, keep doing what you're doing. Obviously you got things working the right way right now.
Yep. Just keep the train moving here, and apparently do whatever you're doing on defense to force fumbles and interceptions. Keep working on it, because anytime you can win the turnover battle like that, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, I said, I think during our preseason show, like Evergreen could actually finish in the top third of the conference this year. I mean, they have the talent, consistency as far as the coach. But yeah, I expect big things from Evergreen this year. Quality win.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Look at the next game. Wayne Trace at Fort Recovery. Fort Recovery won 20-6. Fort Recovery led at the half 14-0. Total yards, Wayne Trace had 199. Looking at Wayne Trace, wide receiver Tyler Head had a receiving touchdown in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Cole Moorhead was 16 of 24 for 67%, 152 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown. And just a quick little point on how this game went. Quarterback for Fort Recovery, Reese Wendell, had 22 carries, 155 rushing yards. He was 1 of 3 passing on the night. So really ran the ball a lot at their quarterback. This game I had limited stats, but still wanted to briefly cover them. So guys, thoughts on the Wayne Trace at Fort Recovery game?
Well, you picked this one. I did not. I always have faith in Wayne Trace to pick up a win, but things didn't go their way.
It's kind of scary to see some of these scores for the GMC. There's a lot of losses for the GMC in week 1, which kind of speaks volumes. We're talking about GMC being very equal across the board, but might, as a conference as a whole, be down a little bit. And that's across the board. I mean, Fairview, I think, is the one that's really shining a little bit right now. But with Wayne Trace coming out against Fort Recovery, you got to just restart this week here and put that loss behind you.
And Fort Recovery plays in a tough conference too. Down there, they play all the MAC teams, and I knew Wayne Trace, and my kind of logic for picking Fort Recovery was Wayne Trace lost a solid senior class last season. I think there were some questions of who they're going to return for quarterback and some of the other top players, and they do have some good athletes, but on the road down south, it's a tough place to win at. So that was kind of my thoughts on that. Keith.
Quality game by Reese Wendell, 71-yard touchdown run. And anytime your quarterback can go 1 of 3 and you have a convincing win, that's a fantastic evening.
Right, no kidding. All right, we'll go to the next game here. Lake at Leipsic. I think this was another shocker. I know quite a few of us had Leipsic. Lake won 34-22 halftime score. Leipsic had 22, Lake 14. Lake outscored Leipsic 20-0 in the second half. Total yards, Lake had 402, 243 passing. Leipsic had 275 with 186 passing. Turnovers, Lake had 2, 1 interception, 1 fumble. Leipsic had 0. Some top players from Leipsic: wide receiver Jace Brecht, 7 receptions, 122 receiving yards with 1 receiving touchdown. Quarterback Mark Kirkendall, 14-22, 64%, 186 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown. So I guess my thoughts looking at this is I was kind of surprised. Leipsic had a nice little lead there at halftime, but just couldn't hold on in the second half. And I'm not sure, obviously, because we didn't watch this game, what happened, but things just kind of broke down. And, that's definitely tough. If you're up and you're at home and then all of a sudden the opposing team just drops a 20-0 ball on you in the second half, that's pretty devastating. So, guys, thoughts on this game?
Yeah, they obviously made their halftime adjustments, but it's kind of weird. You see Lake had two turnovers, but still won the game, and you don't see that very often when losing the turnover battle and still coming out with a victory.
For me, just looking at the yardage, if I'm Leipsic and I see that I gave up 402 yards of offense, kind of sticks out. It's a quality program over there at Leipsic. I don't think that I'm sure they have, but not in recent memory they've given up over 400 yards of total offense.
Right. AJ, you have any comments?
Nope, not right now.
All right, we'll move on to the next game here. Bryan at Van Wert. Kind of a blowout here. Cougars took this one. It was them all the way, 48-8 over Bryan. Halftime score, Van Wert had 21. Bryan had 8. Total yards, Van Wert 525 yards. That's something. Van Wert still has a high, powerful offense, 342 rushing. Bryan had 268 with 182 rushing. Turnovers, Van Wert had 2 with 2 interceptions. Bryan had 1 with a fumble. Some top players, Van Wert quarterback Briston Wise. He was kind of a shining light last year. He showed his glimpses. 14-20, 70%, 183 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, 18 carries, 254 rushing yards, 14.1 yards a carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. So that's something I just want to point out too. Van Wert's kind of taken almost like that running back figure and placed him back in the quarterback spot. They did that last year with Brylan Parker too. And it seems to be working for him. Wide receiver Micah Cohen, 5 receptions, 109 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Linebacker Kyle Eggleston, 12 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. From Bryan, running back Damian Wolf, 18 carries, 126 rushing yards. Wide receiver Carter Dominic, 3 receptions, 27 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, the only score of the game for Bryan. Quarterback Cade Carlin, 10-22, 45%, had 87 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 14 carries for 34 rushing yards. So, guys, thoughts on the Van Wert and Bryan game?
Talking about the yardage there, talking about the 402 for Leipsic, giving that up. Bryan here, that's a lot of yards to give up for a defense. 525 yards. That's something you got to look at on defensive side and see what you got to do there to make some changes.
342 of those rushing yards. Right. They were really just pounding the rock.
Yep.
Actually, they had last year a lot of defensive problems as well under Coach Redhead, but Bryan actually got out to a 8-0 lead. I think Van Wert's one of those schools coming into game 1, you probably had some question marks about where they're going to be offensively after the graduations, and you rebound with 48 unanswered points, and you win 48-8. At least for the first week, they kind of quieted some of their critics.
Yeah, and over the last 5-6 years, Van Wert's been a solid program in the WBL. They had 3 or 4 consecutive regional championship games that they made it to, and very solid program. So. Van Wert's looking to continue that tradition and that high-powered offense this year with starting off with 525 yards of total offense. So impressive game out of Van Wert. We'll see what Bryan has to bring. I think we'll see where Bryan goes from here. New coach this year. do they continue this path? Do they change and get things righted in week 2? So I think Bryan is still one of those teams. I don't think that a lot of people know what they're going to bring this season. So I think week 2 will tell a lot for the Bears. So let's move on to the next game. Liberty Benton at Ottawa Glandorf. Liberty Benton won this one big, 34-6. Halftime score: Liberty Benton 21, Ottawa Glandorf 0. Total yards: Liberty Benton 308 yards, 169 passing. OG 213 yards, 115 passing. Turnovers: Liberty Benton 0, Ottawa Glandorf 2, with 2 interceptions. And some top players from OG: wide receiver Dane Dooling, 5 receptions, 81 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And quarterback Peyton Coleman, 9 of 16, 56%, 115 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, but he did have 2 interceptions. So thoughts on the Liberty Benton at OG game?
Got nothing.
I don't know enough about Liberty Benton or Ottawa Glandorf, and I'm sorry about that. But, again, just a solid game at Liberty Benton, 308 yards, just doing their thing.
Yeah, you just hope it's not another down year for OG.
Yeah.
Be the 3rd straight down year. But, Liberty Benton's another quality football program in Ohio, so I don't really think this was a big shocker in week 1.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. 2 games left here, just briefly cover them. Ridgedale at Hilltop. Ridgedale was victorious 14-13. Halftime score: Ridgedale had 14, Hilltop 7. Total yards: Ridgedale had 318, 286 rushing, Hilltop 249 with 150 rushing. Turnovers: Ridgedale had 2 with 2 interceptions, Hilltop 2 with 2 interceptions. Hilltop missed the PAT in the 3rd quarter, which left them down by 1 point the rest of the game. So kind of a bummer there for the Cadets. Some top players from Hilltop: running back Scott Bowers, 21 carries, 121 rushing yards, 5.8 yards a carry. Quarterback Cameron Shimp, 7 of 19, 68 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions. And then wide receivers Brock Kessler and Bryce Grubbs each had 1 receiving touchdown. So guys, we know Hilltop the last couple of years, they've been trying to, kind of climb that ladder in terms of wins and getting the program to, somewhere they'd like to see and more wins in the win column. But, you think just a couple of years ago, they had no wins. They had a 20-something game loss streak, losing streak. So, they're getting there. I think they're closing the gap. They've got some good athletes. You see running back Scott Bowers, rush for 121 yards. So guys, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. Special teams. It's all the Defiance game. See it here. I mean, just different times you see it. PATs, man.
Especially in the high school level.
Take it for granted all the time. You don't spend enough time letting the kids kick and practice, and then and I don't know. It's just one of those things when you talk about PATs, and I'm going to bring it up since these guys missed it and it cost the Defiance the game. You don't spend enough time practicing it, and in the colleges and the pros, people, that's all they do. I mean, that's all they do is practice snapping, catching, putting the ball down, and kicking. It's a process, and if the snap's not good, if the hold's not good, and the kick's not, I mean, all 3 of those have to go right for that to be successful, and just see a lot of missed PATs.
Yeah, you typically see a lot of high school teams only practice. You work really hard on your offense, you work really hard on your defense, you do some kickoff stuff, but then like PATs is like, oh, let's run like 3 of them and we'll call it good. And it's like, I mean, that seriously can make or break your team.
Yeah.
Especially as you get down where they're closer games like this or the Defiance game, like we saw in the playoffs last year and the year before, where games are decided by a field goal kick. It's people overlook it too much.
I mean, let's go back a couple of years with quite a few years actually when you were playing. That Landon Dravis got hurt, couldn't hold the kick. You guys ended up losing to LCC, and then Logan's team could have been in state championship game and missed a field goal. So just you never know. That's such an important part we talk about all the time, and we see it pop up every week.
I think those are all valid points. It's just one of those things that's unfortunate, but you got to be solid in all 3 aspects: offense, defense, and special teams. When it's a game of inches and everything matters. So. Last game here before we go to break: Paulding at Swanton. Paulding won this one big, 34-0. Halftime, Paulding was up 15-0. Some top players from Paulding: quarterback Colton Hunt was 23 of 31, 74%, 303 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns with 17 carries and 49 rushing yards. Wide receiver Jordan Manns had a solid performance: 7 receptions, 102 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Wide receiver Kane Jones, 4 receptions, 70 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. 4 receivers had at least 50 yards and a touchdown. Linebacker Jack Woods Obviously, I'm personally a big fan of him. He plays a good linebacker position. He's a hard worker, but he finished with 11 tackles, 4 TFLs, and 2 sacks. So, guys, thoughts on the Paulding at Swanton game?
For me, a big win for Coach Menzie and the Paulding program to start out 1-0. But as far as individual performances, this is probably one of the better individual performances in week 1. You see Colton Hunt, 23 of 31 for 303 yards passing, 5 scores. Just looking for the best for Paulding this year, and that's a way to start out week 1.
Yeah, it's a good start for a team that's been struggling here the last couple of years. And, Paulding might be one of those teams that could shock some people in the GMC a little bit. I know Swanton's not like the top dog to face off against for week 1, but you got to start somewhere, and they definitely came out and made a statement.
Yeah, I think Paulding's going to be one of those teams to be looked at. They're going to be a contender.
All right.
And then Logan's best friend, Jack Woods.
I like Jack Woods. I mean, I can't believe he got second team GMC last year. I told him at the kickoff show, I said, Jack, it's a must. You got to get first team GMC this year. So, but no, I've watched him play, and I like to, it's kind of hard when we watch these teams play because we're doing a million different things. We're analyzing the game on video camera and doing other things. But sometimes I like to pick certain players and watch them specifically. Watching him play, he just plays the game so hard, and he gives 110%. He plays physical too. That's the thing that I like. I like physical players. Like I think of Garrett Rodenberger from last year. Man, I love following that kid. Now he's playing at Walsh this year, but if you can have those players that bring the hit stick, and we talked about with the Tenora Liberty Center game. Obviously Tenora had lost some of their linebackers like Gus Weiler, Rostai, and Geisinger. Played for a while, but man, those kids could hit. And I said, Tenora would have someone like that, bring some juice, bring some energy. I mean, that's huge for a team. And I think Jack Woods brings that to the Paulding Panthers. So, all right. Well, that wraps up our game recaps. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. BSN Sports is your go-to business for purchasing uniforms, equipment, spiritwear, and anything else your athletic program needs, giving you more time to impact lives on the field. With over 1,200 sales professionals who live, work, and serve in your community, you're always just a short drive or phone call away. Be sure to give your local sales rep and Jim Garris a call for any of your athletic supply needs. Optimal Performance Fitness is your go-to gym in Northwest Ohio, providing group fitness classes, personal training, and sports performance sessions for area athletes. Located in Napoleon, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-438-7265.
Baden Stevens Body Shop is your #1 voted auto body shop in Northwest Ohio. We are your experts on all makes and models and are the only Chrysler, Ford, and GM certified collision repair center in the area. Located in Jewel, Ohio. Give us a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Come check out the Baden Stevens Body Shop difference.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are on to a new segment this year, and that is Play of the Week. So each week we'll have submissions from different players, fans, coaches, whoever wants to submit it. But we're going to highlight a Play of the Week, and we'll kind of review that, and we'll select only one winner. So this week's Play of the Week comes from last Thursday, Pandora Gilboa at Columbus Grove. We have number 33, Levi Schroeder, defensive back for the Columbus Grove Bulldogs. He ends up dropping into his coverage. He plays the passing lane well, tips the ball up. He's actually able to catch his own tip, and he returns it for a 55-yard return for a touchdown with 9:07 to go in the third quarter. Guys, we were all there. We have the clip. What were your thoughts on this excellent play by Levi Schroeder?
That was a heck of an athletic play. Number one. Number two, to see the excitement of the Columbus Grove sidelines, coaching staff, players, fans, just the whole atmosphere just exploded as soon as he headed towards the end zone. It was fantastic.
It was kind of on a drive that Pandora Gilboa kind of started getting things going a little bit. They had started marching the ball, a little bit, got a couple first downs, and bam, just took the wind out of the sails big time there with an incredible interception.
Yeah, he just sat down, like you said, Logan, just sat down in his passing lane. He just dropped back, sat down underneath that receiver that kind of cut to the outside, and they threw it right at him, and he got his hand on it and was able to tip it to himself. And then the rest was, he had a couple guys running with him, just kind of running, in their way of the defensive guys. But did a nice job. It was awesome play.
Yeah, it was good to see. Not only did he make a great play, but he finished in the end zone. Anytime you can put points on the board from that's always better, especially scoring on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. So what a play, and congrats to Levi for winning the NWO Sports Player of the Week. Guys, continue to submit those throughout the week. We're going to highlight those, and we'll give you some recognition and be awesome to see. So we're going to move on to the next segment here, Player of the Week from Week 1. And geez, we've spent 10 minutes talking about this. A lot of good performances this week. So we know there's a lot of great athletes in Northwest Ohio. Looking at some of the players, we've got a long list. We'll kind of review them, and then we'll see who kind of had our eye on. So this is who made the list. Columbus Grove quarterback Landon Best, Napoleon running back George Eggers, Defiance running back Anthony Wilder, Fairview wide receiver Logan Ollinger, Eden quarterback Kyler Sapp, Eden wide receiver defensive back Kendall Briggle, Archville quarterback Kurt Kruger, Liberty Center running back Garrison Cruz, Delta running back Landon Littermoot, Patrick Henry quarterback Lincoln Krieger, Van Wert quarterback Briston Wise, Paulding quarterback Colton Hunt, Paulding wide receiver Jordan Mans, and Paulding linebacker Jack Woods. So, guys, there can only be one, but I know you guys were kind of talking about some guys that caught your eye. I'll announce who ended up winning the Player of the Week, but who did you guys have your eye set on?
For me, it was Van Wert quarterback Bryson Wise. I mean, 14 of 20, 70%, had 183 yards. I mean, totally, he had 437 yards he was responsible for, 6 touchdowns, just an awesome night.
I was looking at Lincoln Krieger. His name came up a lot last year, and he's starting off again strong this year with some pretty solid stats, 3 rushing touchdowns. He did throw a pick, but, it's going to happen when you throw the ball. Was 4 total touchdowns that he's responsible for. So he had a good night.
I had Archibald senior quarterback Kurt Kruger rallied the Streaks from a 14-0 deficit in the late third quarter, early fourth, and come from behind victory. So that was mine.
And like I said before, there could only be one. So after some discussion, we ended up going with Napoleon running back George Eggers, 19 carries, 80 rushing yards. When you have 3 rushing touchdowns and you have 2 receiving touchdowns, 5 total touchdowns and a huge rivalry, get that rock back in Napoleon. And there's a lot of good plays. Actually, George had a play that was in the running for Play of the Week right before halftime. 6 seconds left. He willed his way into the end zone. It looked like he wasn't going to make it, but, stuck his hand down on the ground and was able to reach across that goal line. So his performance really helped the Wildcats come and get that win last Friday night. So Napoleon running back again, George Eggers is going to be our BSN Sports Player of the Week, and he will receive a shirt courtesy of BSN Sports. So again, we thank BSN Sports, for being a huge sponsor and, hooking these guys up with some gear throughout the season. So, only one a week gets one of those shirts. So we're excited to partner up with BSN Sports and get these guys some merch. So good to go. So that will conclude our Player of the Week. We're going to go into our power rankings for week 2. So,
boy, you're going to start making everybody bad the second week.
I was going to say, that this causes a lot of, I don't know what you want to say.
Discourse,
yeah.
Ruffled feathers.
I can see it already. I see it in there already. It's just going to be like, what are you doing?
I know. But what I'll do is I'll start from the bottom 25, work our way up to 1. And we'll kind of go from there. Every few picks or every section, the guys will kind of give where they think things should be. And we'll go all the way to number 1. But people can really get worked up about this. And obviously this is just for fun and, kind of how we view, I guess it's usually myself that goes through and ranks all these teams from 26 to 1. So let's start with number 26 on the board. That is North Central. Number 25, Hilltop. Number 24, Swanton. 23, Hicksville. 22, Wayne Trace. 21, Montpelier. 20, Ayersville. Thoughts on these teams here?
North Central's at the bottom, and we thought a couple of years ago that they're one of those teams that was possibly turning the corner.
Yeah.
And it's just week 1, but it's kind of disappointing to see them back down at the bottom. So,
yep. Not a lot to say about the bottom here.
All right, looking at 19, Wauseon, 18, Bryan, 17, Edgerton, 16, Evergreen, 15, Antwerp. Thoughts on this section here?
You're going to get killed for Antwerp at 15, Logan.
I know.
Just throwing that out there. I was going to throw that out right off the bat.
yeah, hopefully 2 teams in Montpelier and Ayersville that we can see climb throughout the mid part of the season.
Looking at the next section, 14 Ottawa Glandorf, 13 Eden, 12 Lipsick, 11 Paulding, Tenora 10. And we'll save the rest of the top 10 for next.
As I said, you're going to get the Sonora over Paulding and the Antwerp, and you're going to hear that one, I'm sure.
Quality of opponent.
Yes, quality of opponent is a
I don't
huge
care
factor.
the quality of opponent when you get road graded.
We'll break it down. Looking in the top 10, number 9 Delta, 8 Fairview, 7 Van Wert, 6 Archbold, and guys, a couple of these teams play each other. Delta and Fairview play this week, so I think that's going to be a huge game. But thoughts on this group here?
I just think for conversation alone, if we can see Delta in the top 12 for most of the year, I think would make for a fantastic NWOAL season.
Delta, we'll see what they can do, right? I mean, if they can continue playing the way they did, say in that top 10, that'd be awesome. But we're really going to see what Fairview's made of this week.
And top 5 Patrick Henry, 4 Defiance, 3 Napoleon, 2 Columbus Grove, and 1 Liberty Center. Thoughts on the top 5?
Maybe Defiance, but again, quality of opponent. Maybe PH could be ahead of them, or Van Wert or Archbold, but I'm okay.
I think early in the season, I think this is a solid ranking for the top 5. I don't think you can really justify anybody. Liberty Center and Columbus Grove, I think, are the obvious top 2. Napoleon, they got a good win over Defiance, but they'll be tested here soon too. They're going to be playing Liberty Center this week, right? I think
Napoleon playing Liberty Center.
Huge game this week.
So that'll be a big matchup. I think last year Liberty Center kind of came out and put them to business a little bit. So we'll see how that matchup looks this year. But we'll see how things shape up.
Yep. All right. Well, that concludes our power rankings. We are going to go ahead and take a break. Stay tuned. We're going to be back with the segment everyone likes in the hot takes. So we'll be right back to hear from our sponsors.
Marco's Pizza is honored to sponsor NWO Sports, serving your pizza of choice in Northwest Ohio. Defiance, Archbold, Wauseon, Delta, Bryan, Napoleon, Paulding, and Montpelier. Order online at marcos.com today. Remax Realty of Defiance has represented Defiance County for nearly 40 years. Located at 1401 South Jefferson Avenue in Defiance, we have 13 agents ready and available to assist you in home buying or selling needs. You can check out all the listings at www.remax419.com or call us at 419-784-3029. Let our years of experience go to work for you. For 26 years, Burkholder Taxidermy has been Northwest Ohio's trusted full-service taxidermist. From game heads to lifelike mounts, we provide exceptional quality and craftsmanship. Preserve your memories with Burkholder Taxidermy, where experience meets excellence. Located at 19331 Buckskin Road, Defiance, Ohio. Give them a call at 419-782-9538. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio. Call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, we are on to everyone's favorite section, Hot Takes, presented by BSN Sports. Oh, we've got a lot of good ones here today. I told Keith and the guys, what was it? At one point, I had 79 submissions just on Instagram of hot takes, and there was probably even more through the night. I just couldn't even read them anymore. So that's awesome. There's a lot of hot takes in Northwest Ohio, a lot of good ones. So we're going to get things going. So the first one, it's a kind of a two-parter. It was submitted by 2 different people, but we're going to group it into one. Mike Vickers is a wizard. So Mike Vickers is back at Delta, head coach, and he made a statement with that huge win over Ayersville in week 1. Part 2 of that is Delta wins 7 games under Coach Vickers this season. So bold statements. And I would say probably 25% of the things that were sent in were related to Delta and Coach Vickers. So that tells me one thing is Delta, again, has a lot of excitement. I talked about it before, but a lot of good things. So who wants to start with this one?
I would be easy on the Wizard part. He won this first game.
right.
Let's see how he does. I think he's a great coach. I mean, obviously he's done a nice job. Been coaching for a lot of years, but let's not get crazy and start calling him a wizard yet. Let's see how he does in the NWOAL. Then he knocks off Liberty Center, then maybe the Wizard give him the whole hat and everything. But
I'm right there with you on that. Let's hold the phone for a little bit and see how things start shaking up and when it really matters. So these preseason pre-conference games really don't mean a whole lot other than computer points towards playoffs and shaping up the team. So it will really start to matter here in week 3.
I think we'll get a good indication this Friday night when play Fairview.
Yeah.
And they play Lake, then play Bryan. So I guess on paper, with any break whatsoever, Delta could be staring at 4-0.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Delta wins 7 games under Coach Vickers. I think that's very possible.
Yeah.
Wauseon, they didn't look good first game. If they knock off Fairview this Friday night, they got, then they go against Bryan, who didn't play well the other night. I mean, so like you said, looking at 4-0, and they've got some other easier games in there, Swanton.
Yep.
So definitely could win 7 games.
I think
the playoffs.
Yeah, I think if Delta goes into Fairview or they Fairview week this week and they win again like they did Ayersville, I think you really start turning some heads more because we know Fairview is going to be a quality team this year, and especially Delta. Delta struggled the last few years, so I can't remember what they went last year, but they've had some losing seasons and they've really rode the struggle bus the last couple of years. But nonetheless, again, we kind of said this the same thing with Fairview beating Wauseon. Though Wauseon's down some this year, it's still a big win. And to win week 1, and to win in that fashion like Delta did against Ayersville, and Ayersville is not a slouch team either. No. Ayersville's got some really good quality players. They're very well coached under Coach Mickey. But for them to go out there and just dismantle them with the run game, it's unbelievable to see. And again, he's creating just the presence of Coach Vickers. Isn't that amazing to see the hype that he's creating around that community?
And Delta's a football town because I remember, Logan, when you guys would go over there and play Delta week 2 or 3 back then, Delta would have a fantastic house there. The crowd would be full.
Yeah.
So Delta is a football town. You win, that community is just going to come out.
Another great venue to play at. No track around the field.
And that press box is huge over there.
And another venue that I didn't like going to sitting on the visitor side because the sun's in your face the whole time.
Yeah, that's true too.
Every visitor side.
But going back to Coach Vickers, you look at his record before excluding this year, he was an 185 and 114 over 27 seasons in 6 schools. So obviously he's a coaching name well known in Northwest Ohio, and now he's back to Delta where he once was before. I think Delta, I don't know, I think they're going to do some good things. Obviously, like you guys said, it's really early in the season, so come talk to us again when they're week 3, week 4 entering conference play, and then we'll really kind of see where they're at.
Yeah, let's see how they play against the Liberty Centers, the Archbolds, the PHs, and we'll see.
All right, let's move on to the next hot take here. Head coaches who continue to play their starters when up more than 3 scores, especially the second half, need assistant coaches that will smack them upside the head. Oh, man. This is kind of funny, so I had to throw it in there, too. So, Tony, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, wow. That make me start. Yeah, I think, you're in the second half, you're up 3 scores. You don't want to pull them too early, because unfortunately, it goes by stats. Everything's, for all your end of year awards goes by stats.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
And that's what, and trust me, I run into this a lot in softball, but so you pull them too early, then they don't get the stats. They don't get, the build up. The quarterback doesn't throw for 400 yards when he threw for 300 yards in first drive of the third quarter, and he could have easily thrown 400 yards, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, though. And that's where you kind of walk that fine line. And, and we saw that with Dom. I mean, they weren't up, but they were down big. And it's kind of the same thing. Took that nasty hit. Could have very easily been done right then and there. Keith and I, we were just watching the guy from Finley.
Yeah, Ryan Montgomery. Right away.
Yeah.
I guess you just never know.
Tore his ACL week 1.
Yeah.
But for me, like Coach Fairchild said, Logan, it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, you darn if you do, darn if you don't. Like some of these scores, we saw teams with double-digit leads into the middle of the third quarter, and they wound up losing. Yeah. So what's that balance? Or if you, obviously, if you're up by 28 or more, late third, early fourth, you probably pull the plug. But I mean, the kids practice all summer. They battle against their teammates. You got 3 practice games. and they just want to play.
Right.
You know, it's hard to tell a kid that, say, sorry, but your time is over, and you're like, Coach, I practiced all summer long for this. You know,
it's also, you're doing so well that they get pulled down. It's like, it's hard to stay motivated when you get up by like 2 scores, because if you get that third score, then I'm not going to be playing anymore. It's like, you want to reward these kids for the amount of time and effort they put in, and it's almost, to me, it was almost a punishment to get yanked out of the game in the third quarter because we're beating a team 40-0. It's like, I want to keep playing, but you do have the injury problem. You don't want to hurt people, but and you kind of have to gauge as a coach of like how physical the game is. If teams are beating each other up, yeah, absolutely get them out of there. But if it's a game that's not necessarily easy, but not as physical, you're beating them bad, but nothing crazy is really happening, then let them kind of ride it down a little bit, just to let them have that enjoyment and reward for being there for so long.
Let me ask this. So I know obviously this says more than 3 scores, especially in the second half. Is there ever a point in the first half that you would pull your starters? I mean, I think it'd have to be egregious.
For me, Liberty Center game the other day, being up 35, I probably pull my starters middle of second quarter. If you're up 35 like you were there, pull my starters in the middle of the second quarter, because if something goes wrong, you got the whole second half. You put your starters back in, and you're probably coming back out with your starters. So yeah, I probably pull my starters a little bit, give them a break in the first half.
That's a fair statement.
Middle of the second quarter, pull them. If you're blowing somebody up that bad, I mean, they were up 21-0 after 6 plays, so I mean, you literally could have pulled them at any time right there. But yeah,
I think looking at this too, looking in the second half, I don't know that I necessarily, and obviously I don't coach, but if I'm looking at things, I played the game. You guys all played the game and stuff, know the game well. I think, I don't know that you necessarily say, okay, 3 scores, we're taking you out.
Right.
I think it's a feel to the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it depends on how the game's going, the flow. It's just got to feel. It could be 3 scores. I definitely wouldn't probably pull them out with 2 scores. I mean, that's a little too tight for liking. But 3 scores would probably be the minimum, and it just depends on the circumstance too.
Yeah, you definitely keep your eyes on the game, right? If you feel something, for me, if I feel something starting to swing, even a drive, there you go. Let's snuff this. Let's go back in there and take care of business, and then we'll work the JV kids or whatever back.
I think that's a valid point, because we've talked before. How many times have we talked about like momentum?
Yeah.
And that feel to the game being a crucial component. And say you pull your starters and you're up 3.
Yeah.
Let's say you pull them, towards the end of the third, early in the fourth. Well, your opponent goes out and they pop off a huge play and they score a touchdown. Well, 3 scores now goes to 2, and now you're in a ball game. So I think that's a huge thing as well. So
wasn't it Peyton Manning that was down 28 points and come back and won or something like that?
Well, or
it was a high school game that did that too.
What was it? The Falcons were up.
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, and Brady came back and beat them.
Yeah, New England and Atlanta. Yep.
Never doubt Tom Brady.
28-3.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's kind of a good question. I mean, I like
is.
that. So I mean, it makes you really think of where you're at with things. But yeah, I think to really wrap up a conclusion, I think it's all a feel. But definitely, yeah, like you said, first half is a little bit more rare. And again, it's all circumstantial and how the game's going and what the feel is. So let's move on to the next one. 16 weeks is too long of a season. Should be 4 playoff games, not 6. I'll kick this one off for reference. In Division I college football, the champions of 2023 got thrown my Michigan Wolverines. They were 15-0. So Division I college football team, they don't even play 16 games. So I think I agree with that. Well, you figure regular season for high school football is 10 games. You're playing 16. That's over a season and a half of football if you win the state championship. Right. I think probably maybe 14 games, 15 games is appropriate. I think that's what it used to be. It used to be less playoff games to get there, but I think that's really kind of drawing things out, and it definitely changes the way coaches think of things in terms of injuries and preserving your players and rehabbing them and health. But that's a lot of games and a lot of snaps to be putting on high school kids. So I guess that's kind of my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts?
As a football fan, I love that there's that many games.
But
from a health of the players and longevity of the season and stuff, it gets a little bit much. And we've talked a lot about it last year with extending the playoff, who gets in and whatnot. I think some of the matchups in the first week don't even really necessarily need to happen. You got teams in there with like 3 wins facing off against a team that's undefeated.
0 wins.
Well, yeah, in some rare cases, even without a win at all, depending on who you played, some of those games just don't even need to happen. So you could easily drop 1 week and maybe do a bye week for the top seed teams. Let some of the other guys kind of play in a little bit, cut some of that time out because 16 weeks is a long time. When you're playing into December as high school, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to say than that. I totally agree with you, AJ. You got to worry about the health of the players. There's games that shouldn't be being played at the beginning. Even if you only give the top 2 teams a bye or top 1 team a bye, the top seeded team a bye, whatever, however you do that. But yeah, you've got to. I personally think that the playoffs have gotten out of control.
Yep, expanded playoffs. That's pretty much where we're at with that.
I mean, like AJ did say, fan/media side of me loves
the absolutely
because those are additional games we can go and watch and cover. But the realistic side of me, I think it's just 1 or 2 too many at the high school level. So
and that as we saw a couple times already, you're looking at Brian traveling all the way to Cleveland, Glenville to play a game, first round game, and that's ridiculous.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Another Columbus Grove hot take. Trent Barraza, a.k.a. Bobby, is the best player in Northwest Ohio, ... easy. That's a bold statement.
True.
Who wants to kick this off?
Boy.
Heath?
He's probably the most exciting player in the area. But it's hard not to throw Trey Rubenstein in there as well. I mean, Trey was, as we saw early on at least, Trey plays offense and defense. We didn't see Barraza play defense at all. Well, Fritz will probably come later in the season, the deeper we go into the playoffs and everything. But Trey's not a slouch either.
No.
Going to Kent State.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell you, Trent Barraza, he's a dynamic player. No doubt about it. The best player in Northwest Ohio. Boy, I mean,
let me ask you this. Are there any other names that pop up in your head besides Trent Barraza or Trey Rubenstein?
Well, I mean, Eggers played a hell of a game. I mean,
Eggers played good. The Wilder kid from Defiance is pretty athletic too.
Garrison Cruz threw out he didn't play much, but I mean, what could he have done had he played more of the game? I don't know. He's definitely in the top 5.
Yeah,
definitely in the top 5 in me. I mean, you got Rubenstein, him,
Grant Smith from PH.
Yeah.
I mean, that kid,
Lincoln Krieger. I mean, you got another guy too.
Lincoln Krieger, that's another good name.
I mean, there's a lot of great players in Northwest Ohio. So, you college coaches, if you're out there looking for kids, there's people come to Northwest Ohio. There's a lot of great athletes. But I don't know if he's the best. Well, I don't know.
I think that's a toss-up. I think it is too early. I think obviously with Barraza and Rubenstein, they're in their senior year. Some other guys that are younger, Eggers and Grant Smith, and Krieger's a senior too. I think. By the end of the season, ask us that question again. I think we'll be able to give you a better answer.
What if I ask it this way? Which player out there means the most to their team?
Ooh, I like that.
I'd say that changes.
Maybe that should be a hot take for next week.
Yep.
Yeah, really, honestly.
If you look at it that way, then Barraza probably is. He's.
I mean, they have Landon Best, and
Landon
Best is a really good quarterback too. But
do they have another running back that's going to take the pressure off of Best? I don't know, but anyway, good question.
Let me put it this: if I had to say, my front running right now, being 2 seniors leading their teams, it's probably between Barraza and Rubenstein. But again, I think we come back to this at the end of the year. I would really like to debate that, see how the season plays out, and where these athletes are. But yeah, that's tough.
Let's come back to that week 5, and then we'll see it again at the end.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a good one. Let's move on to the next one. Tenora wins the GMC with Paulding behind them. Fairview is too soft.
Hey, we didn't write this.
That's
okay.
Right. Again, yeah. Let me rephrase this. I forgot. For those people who are new to this, hot takes are all submitted, and I put them anonymously from the authors. So these are all fan submitted. None of these are from us. These are all from the fans. So
don't you guys get mad at us?
No, yeah,
exactly. Live.
Yep.
Well, I mean, just to point out that I think a lot of us up here are even kind of questioning where Tenora is going to finish after seeing what happened against the Liberty Center. We really don't know how the season's going to shape up for Tenora. who knows with Fairview being too soft or not, but I know Tenora's offensive line was pretty soft on Friday night.
Yep.
So who knows what's going to end up happening this year. The GMC is going to be a fight to the finish.
I think, and I said it before, I think if Tenora works on their O-line and D-line, and like I said, if they can give Dom more time so he's comfortable in the pocket, he's not always throwing on the run, I think then Tenora contends for a GMC title. Everyone and their brother has said, if you listen to any kind of media outlet, the GMC is the tightest that it's ever. It's like on repeat. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
It's how well these teams are going to execute and how well they're going to, correct their mistakes throughout the year. Ayersville is another team, kind of picked to fill middle of the pack. They still have some good athletes too, but they lost big to Delta. But again, it's week one. It's so early to try to tell some of this stuff. But Tenora, Paulding, Fairview are all in the top front running. I just think it's crazy that someone's calling out Fairview for being too soft. I know that they run the spread, but obviously their defense stepped up. They held Wasion to minimal points, so I think that sense has improved. And obviously we know that they're not coach soft because we've heard Coach Doug Rakes talk before, and that's an intense guy, and he runs a very well-ran program.
Yeah, I think you're going to see whoever submitted this, Fairview can snuff this week. If they go out and they beat Delta and shut Delta down, then I think that answers this question.
Yeah, well, we know Delta, they like to run the football. They're going to play some smash mouth downhill football.
We'll see if Fairview's too soft.
100%. All right. You guys have any other comments on this one?
Nope.
Let's move on to the next one. If Parker Woods isn't injured, Napoleon throws for 350 plus against Defiance. That's tough. I don't know. It's hard to say how this game goes. Obviously, Parker Woods he was a huge component of that offense that, he was left sidelined to injury. 350. I don't know. That's a lot of offense for
100 extra yards that they didn't get.
Yeah. I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda. We heard going into this game that Owen Espinoza wasn't even going to play.
Right.
So he winds up throwing 40 passes. So now the extent of his injury, I never heard what it was. We just heard before our game that, hey, both starting quarterbacks are not going to play here.
Yep.
And then you wind up finding out that he, throws for 250 yards and throws the ball 40 times. So I don't know. That's a heck of a duo there when you got Woods on one side and Trey Rubenstein on the other. You can only double team probably one of them.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's going to have a huge game somewhere.
I mean, in that sense, yeah. I mean, you bring in another dynamic threat. Split out there out wide, who knows, maybe they do double up Trey Moore or Parker because, both of those guys can go out and make plays.
Yeah. They're both vertical threats and they're going to be able to get the ball to them and one's going to help the other one. So would they got another 100 yards? Quite possibly. He completed 30 or 40
and that's pretty solid performance.
Would they have thrown the ball more? I mean,
Eggers had a nice game running the ball too.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think they would throw for 350.
Yeah. I mean, Defiance is a solid team. And honestly, that game, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda went Defiance's way. They, they missed that extra point, and that made a huge difference too. And but yeah, 350. That's a lot of offense against a rival. I'm gonna say probably not. Let's move on to the next one. We got a couple more hot takes here. A couple Liberty Center ones. I'll wait for the second one. The second one's pretty crazy. Well, the first one is too. We'll start with that one. Liberty Center running back Garrison Cruz is already better than all three brothers and will rush for 1,000+ yards.
Was this Garrison a sentence?
No, this was not Garrison. That would have been hilarious if it was.
Just picking his brothers.
I think realistically, I think the thing holding him back from maybe hitting 1,000 yards is playtime. There's a very good chance that Liberty Center doesn't play some of their starters through, half of the third quarter on. If they play like they did last year, a lot of those seniors, I guess he's not even a senior, but a lot of those starters would not even be in the game come midway through the third quarter. So
I was going to say the same thing, actually. That's very well could be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I mean, you already have two running backs that probably will get carries in front of him, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, Waylon Ransom, I would think is going to be
Thomas Moeller, and I mean that's a nice problem to have if you're Coach Moeller. I mean, which one do I choose here?
So again, I'll throw out another one. Does Liberty Center have 3,000-yard backs?
That's funny you mentioned that.
What? Just like AJ said,
there's a chance for that because I don't think they'll be in there long enough to.
No, you're 100% right because I mean, I mean, I hate to say it, for a lot of their opponents, they're probably going to get the running clock on them too. And that running clock's just going to eat away.
So fast.
It does.
Oh,
We got out of the game, the Sonora Liberty Center game, before what, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, it was.
9
I
o'clock
think
it was over.
even after we had packed up, I think it was like 9:10 that we were walking out of the stadium.
You know, that running clock is interesting too. You think about, we're talking so much about stats and, you know, postseason voting and revealing that. What about records? You think of the record books for all these schools in the state of Ohio. You know, gone are the days, I think, of you scoring. You saw some of these teams. Obviously, the running clock doesn't start till the second half.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think it's very seldom you see teams running up the score to even 50 plus.
Like Delta had 55.
I know. I thought that was kind of crazy too, that they were able to score 50 plus points with the running clock.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna say, from what I've seen from Garrison, from freshman Garrison to sophomore Garrison, it's impressive.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he's put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle, good weight. And not only that, I think you had brought it up, not only is he bigger, stronger, he's faster too. I mean, he hits the hole, he runs hard. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I mean,
I tell you what, in Friday night's game, he reminded me of Kip McCann.
yeah.
Just once he got to that second level, and he was just off he went.
Lowers his shoulders through the line, but as soon as he hits that second level, man, good luck catching him.
Yeah, just the guys were talking about the running clock. There were roughly 70 plays in the first half of the Liberty Center Sonora game, and about 35 in the second half.
So half.
That's with the running clock.
Wow.
So that's what it does to you.
I had kind of joked at the game too. I said, well, we obviously knew the Cruz triplets. They left their legacy at Liberty Center, but you know, Garrison wasn't having to compete with a couple other brothers in the womb. So I mean, maybe he's got a little bit better genetics. You know, there's just one of him and not three of them coming out. So, but no, I think Garrison's primed for a big year and a big future. But I don't think it goes without talking about, you know, some of the other backs too. And you know, you can't forget about Thomas Moeller and Waylon Rentz there too. So
And that's the fortunate part. And so the question is, will he rush for 1,000? No, not because of the other backs.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I don't. It's just a matter of which one.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good question. So let's move on to the next one. And this is the one that's really taking a jab. To all the Liberty Center state title believers, go watch Ironton and Harvest Prep's week 1 games. So they're taking a jab. I mean, I know obviously everyone's already talking about state title, this and that for Liberty Center, which rightfully so. Obviously they made it to the state championship last season, and they're reloaded this year. They look very well. You know, for them to put together a complete performance like they did week 1 this year, compared to what we saw against Tenora last year, you know, Tenora gave them a little bit of run for their money, especially in the first half of 2023. But this year, I mean, it was all Liberty. I don't know. I had to do some research. I didn't know much, obviously, about Ironton and Harvest Prep. Obviously, we know they're good and they're quality teams. So looking at Harvest Prep, Division 5, Region 19 is what they're in. They beat Pickerington Central, a Division 1 school, 24-21. And Pickerington Central is a legit school.
Yeah.
They went 12-1. Looking at Harvest Prep, they went 12-2 last season. They lost to Perry 8-22 in the state semifinal game. We know Liberty lost to Perry in the state championship game. And last season,
closer than that.
yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
I was just gonna say,
Came down the
closer than that.
yeah. And last season, Harvest Prep beat Ironton in the playoffs 20-14, and then Ironton is in Division 5, Region 19. They beat Wheelersburg in week 1. Their Division 5 program 37-7, and then Ironton went 11-2 last season, but fell to Harvest Prep in the playoffs. So not too sure. I mean, obviously Ironton's always a good program. I'd be more concerned with Harvest Prep being a Division 1 school that's going to go play top schools like Wayne and Hayes Valley and all those other schools down there. But I don't know. I think Liberty, they're very, very good. Obviously, there's things that they can work on, but they did play some flawless football Friday. I think they have a really good shot.
They're only going to face one,
but it's week 1, and they're only going to face one. Exactly. So, thoughts on this one?
Last year, we were pretty open about the fact that Perry was going to give them a run for their money. You know, we knew it wasn't going to be a walk in the park for Liberty Center, and very much so. I mean, obviously Perry came out and won it, so very well could be the same situation this year. They have 2 very obvious front runners for the state, and then it comes down to just a bloodbath on the field for the state game.
That's why you even line them up.
Yep, exactly.
I guess that's more of a statement than a question. I mean, like if you're a coach and you're on the staff, you just take 1 week at a time. You can't worry about all this.
Coach Muller.
Let's worry about week 2. Let's worry about week 3. Let's worry about the league. Let's worry about the league title. Then whatever goes beyond that, you can't control any of this in week 2.
Yeah.
So,
what was it Coach Muller had talked about? He said he never brings up, state titles or conference
titles, nothing.
Being the best that they can be week in and week out. Yep. And obviously that's worked for them the last few years because they've dominated. And obviously last year they made it to the state championship game. So
yeah, he doesn't even really talk about, win this week. He talks about just do your job, be the best you can be.
Yep.
And that'll just naturally
takes care of itself.
Yeah. Be better than you were last week.
If you're improving from last week, you're going to be on the right path. If you're staying where you're at last week, if you're staying stagnant, everybody else is going to be passing you. So just continue to work on yourself, do your job, and everything will work out.
All right. Last hot take. NWAL greater than the GMC. Bold statement, but here we go. Who wants to kick this off?
I mean, you can probably say that every single year. I mean, just have better talent. I mean, they're bigger schools for the most part, other than, PH and maybe a couple others. But, I mean, that's, I don't even think that's a fight. That's just,
I know people have talked about Sonora going to NWAL before. That was a talk back in I don't know, probably 10 years ago, maybe your time, Logan, around that time frame.
Yeah, there was a brief kind of talk about that.
Oh, we're beating everybody in the GMC. We need to go, then there was a big talk like, no, we don't want to move from the GMC because we could win in the GMC. Right away, they were like, I don't think we could win in the NWAL. So,
well, and I think NWAL has a bigger spread of talent. You've got Liberty Center, one of the best teams in the state in Division 5. And then, unfortunately, you got Swanton, who has been very much struggling. You watch, Paulding beat up on Swanton a little bit. So I think Tenora in the GMC, GMC as a whole, kind of fits somewhere in the middle of the NWAL. I don't think anybody in the GMC really competes for number 1, but I definitely don't think they're at the bottom of the conference. Whereas, like I said, NWAL is so spread on who's good, who's not good this year, but they're pretty consistent on top versus bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys hit it right on the money. Typically, the NWAL, obviously, I went to Tenora. I'm a Green Meadows Conference guy, but NWAL, the tradition that they have and the players and athletes that come through, I have to admit, I think, it's true, especially this year, and I think a lot of prior years as well. Maybe once in a blue moon, Green Meadows Conference might have that couple of those classes come through that are, just stud athletes, but for the most part, probably 80%, 90% of the time, I would say that's probably a true statement.
Yeah, I mean, even when you look at last year, Tenora, Ayersville, and Antwerp all tied for the GMC, and I don't think any of them could have held a candle to Liberty Center. I mean, obviously Tenora didn't. Tenora got beat. And if you look at this week, three of the GMC teams lost to NWAL teams. Tenora lost. Tenora lost. Hicksville lost. Ayersville lost. So, yeah.
Fairview did end up winning one.
Yeah.
They're kind of the outlier against.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's a fairly true statement most of the time.
Yep.
All right. Well, that concludes our hot takes. Thanks again to BSN Sports for sponsoring that segment. Again, I will post and you guys submit your hot takes each week, and we'll keep on reading them off. But this is always a fun time.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming because we always enjoy them. Whether it's they're pretty real statements, they're off the charts. We'll find some good ones and we'll discuss them. So we always enjoy this, and I know a lot of people do as well. So thanks again for submitting those. We're going to go into Matthew's breakout players for week 2. Looking at the offensive side of things, Matthew has picked Lincoln Krieger from PH. Reasoning is Ayersville really struggled to stop Delta last week, and I think Krieger will take advantage of their struggles and have a great night on the ground and through the air. On defense, Matthew chose Jack Woods from Paulding. Reasoning North Central really struggled on offense last week and thinks that North Central, being extremely young and still trying to find their footing a bit, I think that they will lead to a big week for Jack Woods. So those are Matthew's breakout players of the week. And if you guys remember from last season, Matthew was always on the ball. No matter who he picked, they typically, I would say most of the time, they made our player of the week running for a selection. So
yeah, if we were in Vegas, Matthew would come out on top.
Yeah, right. Take him to Vegas with you. He'll end up making you win some big money. So other than that, we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and we will be back with another new segment, Fan Zone Gridiron Talk, where we talk to a local fan from the community. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
DeLarber Concrete and Hauling is your go-to provider for concrete and hauling needs. Flat work, pole barn floors, driveways, and patios. Hauling services for stone, mulch, and dirt. Call Josh for your free estimate at 419-576-0401. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on TenoraRams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are on to our new segment this season, Fan Zone Gridiron Talk. So that's where we have a fan call in onto the show. We talk some football for a little bit, and we're going to have him be a guest picker as well for our game prediction. So it's going to be a good time. So today we have the pleasure of talking to Nick Gillenbach. He's a Columbus Grove guy. So thanks for calling in, Nick.
Hey, glad you guys had me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, glad to have you. So, Nick, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and, where you want to start? We have no script for this, so whatever you want to talk with, we'll go.
Well, Nick Gillenbach is the name, and actually the voice of the Bulldogs. Took over a few years ago announcing for Columbus Grove when the legendary Denny Ricker stepped down after many years. And my wife is a Bulldog alum, Allie. We got a boy, a senior, playing on the team this year. So then we got a fourth grader. I'm originally from Miller City, so the football scheme was new to me. But I'm all in now.
Oh, so. I bet, especially in a community like Columbus Grove. We talked to Coach Schaefer and a lot of the staff in the community. That is just built to be a football community. So. What's it like to live there and, to have kids go there and be a part of something special like that?
Great community. I was actually police chief here for quite a few years, so really involved with the school system, the athletics, on the coaching staff of all the programs. And it's the way they support the athletics. It's believable. It's true family. Football, not that I was counting down, but it took 272 days to get to last fall, back to timer, last Thursday. And it's always in conversation. It's amazing. And we've had a great several years. Coach Schaefer and his team has been phenomenal to watch what he does, coaching staff does with those kids year after year, creating a family. It's beyond the team. It's awesome. And you got the younger kids, the junior high kids are just chomping to be a part of that family. Friday night, you look down in the stands and on the sidelines there, there's junior high kids. They got that look in their eye. That fire is already there. And it takes a good coaching staff to create that, So
I think Columbus Grove's, it's something that's very special in terms of, their football program and community. But even like Keith has sent in our chat, was that article from Lima News about Ned Stetschulty, and just his contributions and what it basically talked about all the stats and everything that he had or that he contributed and, the edge that he gives. But that just goes to show that, they honor those people that work behind the scenes and, really work a lot of magic to help be a part of something great like that. But, we were there Thursday and we had talked before on the podcast of how awesome that facility was and, the lights and everything else. And, that's pretty incredible. I know there's kind of two programs in the area that really stick out to me. I don't know about you guys, but Liberty Center, Columbus Grove, I guess, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with Liberty Center a little bit just from friends from the past. To be honest with you, that's probably one of the first high school football programs that I even got much to know about. So when we go to other venues, of course we're all biased, right? But, we have an atmosphere and you guys seen it on Thursday night. It's the backing the community gives our football program. It's phenomenal. And they travel. I know you guys, sure we're at, the one out of the two times we beat Preston last, but, you see how well we travel. That says a lot about the community, and the kids do that. Kids play harder. They don't want to let them down. Um, heaven forbid a loss happens because everybody wakes up Saturday morning and it's just like, man, what happened? And that says something. That says something. When the standards been set that high and created, I think that says something not only for the program and the coach Schaefer, as well for the community and their involvement.
So go ahead, Tony.
Say, well, Nick, they want to bring up the new lights you guys put in. I mean, did they live up to the hype that everybody was talking about? I mean, for us, it was pretty cool, but how about for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it adds to it, right? It just took it up another level, and being up in the booth, it was like when, the first time we really got to use them because of, Mother Nature says we're not going to get dark. That's fine. But it was just, the response from the crowd, it was one of them big, woo.
Yeah.
And just, that sends chills. Well, that affects the players, right?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. That's one thing we noticed.
Them hyped up. It's a whole nother energy level just to keep that Friday night passion going.
Nick, I got to ask, because you're up in the press box, who has the honors of controlling those?
My spotter, actually, Jeremy Martin.
Oh, really?
God loves the guy. Yeah, God love him. He gets the music and the lights.
Oh, that's awesome.
People always think, "Oh, you got to get such great seats," and I don't think they understand the focus that it takes. Which I'm not saying that we don't have good seats. If it wasn't for Jeremy, I wouldn't do back of as good of a job as we do. Those that have done that before know how good a spotter needs to be. But yeah, he's got the music and the lights.
Pretty cool gig.
You did a good job.
So I think somebody like that runs the audio and the visuals for that really can set the stage for a football stadium and make it more intimidating. If you can get the crowd hyped up, get the lights going on, things like that, get just the atmosphere set. It can be a hard place to walk into as an opponent.
Yeah, I think it absolutely adds to it. I think you can, you can kind of sense people are, getting a little relaxed. And that's the last thing you want, even if there's a minute left in the fourth quarter and you're up by 4 possessions. Relaxing for Saturday morning, man, not Friday night. So you gotta keep it going.
I love it.
Hey, Nick, this is Keith. I think most people just take you guys for granted up there in the press box, doing the PA. But I guess just take us through like a play. I mean, you got your eyes on the field, then the play's over, then you got probably a guy or two like pointing at different numbers, and somehow you got to summarize all this for the crowd and everybody watching. So I guess just take us through a play or two of what you see and explain that to the fans listening.
It goes back to how good Jeremy March does for me. And the hardest part myself, we, the OHSAA basically requests that we don't speak until the play's done. Well, let me tell you something. When Trenton or one of these kids or Landon, somebody takes off, or like Levi Schrader, there's a reason I've got a button that I can mute, because let me tell you, there's some color commentary that the folks get to hear outside the window, and then you got to reset, hit the power button, and then speak to the public. So there's a little bit of an art behind it. Definitely, for me, it's Jeremy, because you're trying to focus, and then in the pile, of course, you want to pick the kids out as frequently as possible, right? I mean, it hypes up even for the away team. Even if obviously we want the Dogs to win, but kids, families, that's an appreciation level that goes up whenever they hear the kids come across. Makes you want to treat them and kind of, for the most part, call their play to the team. Of course, a little bit of a higher energy level, but you know what I mean. You got to do it right. You got to do it fair. it just comes natural after a while. The hardest part is definitely while the play is going on. Just like I said, there's a reason I got a mute button. I am far from quiet, and typically the verbiage is sometimes I would say maybe a little PG-13, but that's what it's about, right?
Well, hey, Nick, I got the same problem with us when we do our Sonora Rams live. I got the same problem. I don't have a mute button, however.
Yeah, it's nice. I got 2 or 3 guys that back that button, including myself, pretty quick, so we can do our thing and then reset.
The amount of times the headset has to be taken off in our Rams lives.
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you, it's that much more enjoyable when you got a program like Coach Schaefer's created.
Yeah.
I mean, just like I said, it was 272 days where oftentimes it's like you hate to wish time by, but you're like, man, come on Thursday night, Route 12 showdown with Pandora, and then of course the Dogs, Coach Schaefer, and the staff had these guys looking like they were in week 4 or 5, and it just come out clicking. And past few seasons, that's taken a couple games just from an outside opinion looking in. Not saying they look bad, but they definitely look like a week 3, week 4 team last Thursday.
They look really good. All right, Nick. Well, one last thing, if you can briefly kind of speak on it, and then we'll move on to our game predictions for week 2, and we'll have you join us as a guest picker. Thoughts on where you see the Bulldogs heading in 2024? What are your expectations?
Well, in all honesty, and if anybody wants to discuss it further in depth, I'm hoping they don't match the Dogs up against Marion Local in the week 15. I
said that too.
Week 16 in Canton. I hauled several of these young men to Canton last year, and when I got there, I turned around and I said, this year, the ride's on me. Next year, you either earn it, walk, or figure it out on your own. I hope they got the taste.
Yep.
I think some of the returning seniors, which we got 20 of them this year, some of them guys were with me. You know how it is when you see somebody's facial expressions, and when they got up there to watch Kirtland and Versailles game start, you can see it. So I'm hoping that was a little blood in the water for the Sharks. Hopefully OHSAA, if Marion Local gets there too, I'd love to see that matchup in Canton. Take back to the 2003 setup.
Very well said. Yeah, I think so. We were there Thursday night, and the Bulldogs have a real quality team this year. So we'll move on to the next section here. We're going to move on to week 2 game predictions. So again, I'll kind of give a little introduction of who's on the slate, and we'll each go through and give our predictions. So let's go ahead. Let's start with the first game up. Eden 1-0 at Antwerp 1-0. Guys, we had talked about this one. Antwerp really shocked us coming out with a big win over Montpelier. We didn't know what this Archers team was going to bring after losing Carson Altmus, a lot of other big names to graduation. But Eden's got Kyler Sapp and the boys, Bob Olwin offense. They're going to light up the scoreboard. I think I'm going to go with the Eden Bombers on this one. I think they have enough talent. I don't know that Antwerp can stop that type of offense. If Eden plays a clean game, we know Kyler Sapp's one of the better quarterbacks in the area. He's going to take care of business, and I think the Bombers win.
Yep, taking the Bombers. Could be a high-scoring affair. Be interesting to see what the final is here. And if Antwerp comes out, then I think we're looking at Antwerp in a whole new light here in 2024.
Yeah, we kind of bet against Antwerp a little bit last week. Well, all of us did. And this week, I think they have a chance to prove whether or not it's going to be a fluke last week, or if it's really a true thing. Is this your rebuilding year or is this a reloading year? Which one is it? So I'm gonna go with Eden. Just kind of play it, see how it goes this weekend.
I took Eden myself. I agree with Logan.
Matthew had Eden, and Nick, who you going with? I know some of these games are a little bit more north of where you're at, but who you picking in the Eden versus?
You know what? I think Antwerp's going to ride from their high last week, so I'm going to take Antwerp.
Hey, that's a solid pick. Pick against the grain. Someone's got to do it. Next game here, looking at Patrick Henry 1-0 at Ayersville 0-1. Obviously, we know Patrick Henry. They won big against Hicksville, and Ayersville had a big loss against Delta. We know Patrick Henry is one of the top teams in the area, Northwest Ohio. Lincoln Krieger. You got guys like Grant Smith. There's a lot of names and a lot of guys stepping up this year. I think Patrick Henry comes into Ayersville and they take care of business. I think they win this one big. I'm going Patrick Henry Patriots.
Yeah, I think Coach I is going to have Patrick Henry focused. Don't look ahead to week 3. We got to deal with this game here, and I think the Patriots will come out on top.
Yep, I think it's going to be a tough one for Ayersville, so I think Patrick Henry's going to kind of steamroll him a little bit.
Yeah, I think Ayersville loses 2 in a row at home.
And Matthew had Patrick Henry, so Patrick Henry from all of us. Nick, this is a team when Patrick Henry Patriots you might want to keep your eye on. Week 3, the Bulldogs play them, so who are you picking in the Patrick Henry versus Ayersville game?
Yeah, I got to go with Patrick Henry. We're definitely looking forward to them coming into Clymer Stadium. We owe them a little bit last for that.
Yeah, and actually I had ran into some Patrick Henry players at the game when we went Thursday, so that's going to be a big one in week 3. Looking at
It'll be a great game.
Oh, 100%. Next game here, and this is going to be one of the NWO Sports Game of the Week. It's Fairview 1-0 at Delta 1-0. This will be one of the 2 games that we pick. Top game, a lot that's going to be learned from these. We're still some questions with Fairview and Delta. How legit are they? Still early in the season. Fairview's coming off a huge win against Wauseon. Delta's coming off on a blowout win over Ayersville. I am going with the Apaches. I think I'm jumping on that train. I know I've had teams in the past that I've jumped on. I think Fairview is going to be this one this year. I like Coach Doug Rakes. I know Coach Vickers is back at Delta, but I think Fairview goes into town. I think that spread and that passing game with William Zedike leading the way is going to come out of Delta with a win. So I'm going Apaches.
This is a very hard game to pick. For
me,
it's basically flip a coin. I really want both teams to come out on top. Just for conversation purposes alone. Delta was really impressive. I'm taking Delta.
I'm going to go with Fairview. I'm kind of with you on Logan, jumping on the bandwagon for Fairview. Even starting last year, I was really intrigued by what we were seeing from them. So I hope they continue that train because it would be nice to see them become a stronger force in the GMC again.
And I just flopped mine. I had Fairview picked.
I was going to say, I thought we had 3 Fairviews up there, and I just saw someone change.
Switched it. I went back. I'm going to go with Delta. I think Coach Vickers is going to have Delta ready to go, and they're going to shut Fairview down.
And Matthew had Delta. Nick, who you got in this game? Fairview at Delta.
I'm going with Delta also.
All right. Looking at the next game here. Swan 0-1 at Hicksville 0-1. 2 teams that really struggled week 1. I think this is another tough game to pick. I think 2 teams that are going to be evenly matched coming in. But at the end of the day, only one can come out with a win. I think I'm going Hicksville. I know they have a real strong senior-led class. I think Patrick Henry, they played Patrick Henry last week. I think Patrick Henry is a little bit tougher opponent than what Swanton had to face with Paulding. But I'm going the Aces in this one, and I think they're going to come out with a win.
I'm taking the Aces. I was really impressed by the Hicksville kids that came over to the coaches show.
Yeah, some great kids.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm taking the Aces.
I kind of went with Hicksville here solely for the purpose that they have the home advantage this time. I think it's going to be a very evenly matched game. Fun to see how it turns out, but going with Hicksville.
Hicksville for me.
Matthew had Hicksville. And Nick, who you got in this game? Swanton at Hicksville.
Yeah, I'm with Keith on the home field advantage. I want Hicksville.
All right, solid. Next game, North Central 0-1 at Paulding 1-0. We know North Central lost a big senior class last year, a lot of their top athletes. Paulding's looking to be one of the top teams in the Green Meadows Conference. This game's at Paulding. I think Paulding wins this one in a landslide. I'm going the Panthers.
Panthers.
I'm going to go with Panthers here as well.
Panthers for me.
Matthew had Paulding, and Nick, who you got in the North Central at Paulding game?
I've got Paulding also.
Paulding across the board.
Hey, Logan, you skipped Edgerton Hilltop.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah, let's go back to that one real quick. Next game, Hilltop 0-1 at Edgerton 0-1. Edgerton, we obviously know is a tough place to play at. It's probably one of the better venues to play.
By far.
It's kind of like Clemson. It's got that hill you can run down. It's almost like in a valley. It's a really neat environment. Hilltop, they lost a heartbreaker by 1 point last week, but we know Hilltop's kind of been on the climb the last couple of years, but they're still struggling to get in the win column. Edgerton, they've got some top athletes. I think Edgerton bounces back big. I know that they had some recent, I don't know what I want to say,
It's just tragedy.
in the community.
School, yes.
But I think the Edgerton Bulldogs are going to rally around. I think they're going to win this one huge. I think this is a running clock in the second half. I'm going Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think Coach Slago regroups the boys and they just play for their lost teammate and they make a great season out of it.
I think so too. I think I'm going to go with the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs for me.
Matthew had Edgerton, and Nick, who do you got? Hilltop at Edgerton.
I've got Edgerton also.
All right. Next game. Otsego 1-0 at Tenora 0-1. We'll be at this game for Tenora Rams Live. This is a tough one. We just saw Otsego. Actually, I texted the guys. I said, did you see the score? Otsego blew out Bowling Green last week. Craig Rutherford is there. He's one of the top coaches in the area, longtime top coach. Game's at Tenora, which is nice. It's always good to have home field advantage. And I think I'm going the Otsego Black Knights. As much as it kills me to pick against Tenora, and I know I'm going to hear it Friday night, I think I'm going Otsego. Tenora, I hope you prove me wrong, but I'm going Otsego.
Last year, the Rams were in the same exact spot.
It really was.
Traveling to Otsego. Trenton Delarbor picked off a pass, took it back, pick six, and I think that was one of the early season changing points for the Rams. Similar situation this year. They're at Sonora. I think Dominic and just has too much pride and will not let the Sonora offense fail. And heck of a receiving core. I just think Dominic's going to come out and have a fantastic game, throwing the ball, running the ball. I'm going to take the Rams.
I'm with you, Logan. I don't want to bet against Sonora on this one, but watching what Otsego did last week, it scares me for Sonora. Being unbiased as I can here, because I have all the faith in Coach Becker over there at Sonora, but being unbiased as I can, I'm going to go with Otsego.
I do want to add real quick. I do think Tenora wins this game if their O-line and D-line step up to the plate, because we know a team coached by Craig Rutherford, they're going to be physical. They're going to run the ball down your throat, and they're going to play very well. If Tenora's O-line and D-line step up, I think Tenora wins this, but that's why I went with Otsego.
Well, as you guys just saw, I've flipped mine around a few times there, trying to go back and forth and trying, like AJ said, being unbiased. But as the more Keith talked, the more I'm, I think Dom and I think they're going to get some movement there up front. And Dom's going to take care of the rest, I hope. So I went with Sonora.
Matthew had Otsego, and Nick, who you picking Otsego at Tenora?
I think Tenora's pissed about last week, so I think Tenora's going to.
Hey, that's
and Otsego might be on a little bit of a high, so I'm going with Tenora.
Hey, that's good. The Ram fans will love you for that one. Next game here, Spencerville 1-0 at Wayne Trace 0-1. Wayne Trace is coming off, a tough loss to Fort Recovery team. I think Wayne Trace still has a lot of questions to answer out. Obviously, we don't know too much about Spencerville. That's a little bit more down south. But I think I'm going Spencerville on this one.
Yeah, Bobcats are a solid program. Taking Spencerville.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Spencerville on this one.
Spencerville for me.
Matthew had Spencerville. Nick, who you picking? And Spencerville at Wayne Trace.
I think Spencerville myself got kind of lucky last week, so I got to take Wayne Trace.
All right, picking against the grain. Next game, Archbold 1-0 at St. Henry 0-1. Another interesting matchup. Archbold came back huge. They scored 21 points in the second half. They were down at halftime big. Really showed a lot of grit. Obviously, we know they're well coached by Coach Dominic and the staff over there. St. Henry always plays a tough schedule. It's always a quality football program. This game's at St. Henry, which that might be some trouble. But give me the Blue Streaks. I think they're going to come out big. I think Kurt Krieger had a really good game last week, and I think he's going to have another big game this week, which is going to lead to a win.
I originally had St. Henry when I did my morning picks. Then I thought about it throughout the afternoon, and I just have a lot of faith in Coach Dominic and switched it back to Archbold.
I think Archbold's first half last week was kind of a fluke. I think they came out a little underprepared, but then made some fantastic adjustments at halftime, and I think they're going to almost take it like Liberty Center did last year against Sonora. They came out and had a rough first half against Sonora, but then look at the rest of their season. I think, that little slap in the face in the first half was a wake-up call to Archbold. I think they're going to come out this week and be strong. So go with Archbold.
I'm going with St. Henry because they're playing at home.
Hey, fair enough.
Easy enough.
Matthew had St. Henry. Nick, who you got in Archbold at St. Henry?
I got Archbold.
All right. Next game. Maumee 1-0 at Bryan 0-1. We know Maumee. I saw a couple highlights. I don't know if you guys saw. Maumee's a little bit out of our coverage area, up more towards Toledo. But we know Coach Karchner. He's a really good coach. He's turning that program around again, kind of like how he's helping with Evergreen prior. But Brian's got some questions to answer. Huge loss to Van Wert. I think Maumee wins this one. I think they win this one big.
Taking Maumee.
I'll go with Maumee as well.
Maumee for me.
Matthew had Maumee, and Nick, who you taking in Maumee at Bryan?
Maumee.
Next game, Evergreen 1-0 at Ottawa Hills 0-1. This is another interesting matchup. I kind of had to look at this. Ottawa Hills is always one of the top dogs in the TAC. Evergreen's, probably riding sky high after a 1-0 start. A nice win to start the season against an Elmwood team. And I think I'm going to go with the Vikings and Coach Bach. I'm really believing in Evergreen. They're starting to get some talk around this Vikings program, and I think they could do some big things this year. But I think it's going to be crucial if they can start off with a 2-0 start. So I'm going the Vikings.
This is another one of those I flipped from my early pick. I had Ottawa Hills, and then the more I thought about it, it's like, yeah, Coach Bach is building something special at Evergreen. So I switched my pick to Evergreen.
Yeah, I kind of settled on Evergreen as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of believing in Coach Bach. I'm jumping on, as Logan always says, I'm jumping on that bandwagon, so I want Evergreen as well.
Matthew had Ottawa Hills, so he's the only one that picked Ottawa Hills. Nick, who do you have in the Evergreen at Ottawa Hills game?
I've got Evergreen.
Next game, Napoleon 1-0 at Liberty Center 1-0. This will be the NWO Sports Game of the Week. This is a solid game here. Napoleon's 1-0, coming off a huge win, winning the River Rock against a good Defiance team. But they have to go to good old Liberty Center, which we were just there, and that's not easy to win at. Liberty Center's 1-0. I think this one could get interesting. I think Napoleon, I think they give them a little bit of fits. Obviously, Tenora threw the ball. Napoleon can throw the ball too. I think Napoleon just got a little bit more dynamic athletes than what Tenora had. So I think Liberty wins this. I think they win by a couple scores. It wouldn't surprise me if Napoleon gives them a run for their money, though.
You stole the words from my mouth, Logan. I picked the Tigers, but if Napoleon were to win, I wouldn't be completely surprised whatsoever. Napoleon has a fantastic offense when healthy, and it could, as you said, give Liberty Center fits. But in the end, I think the Tigers prevail.
I think this game will set the pace for Liberty Center's season. I think Napoleon, like you said, has a little bit more going on than Tenora did. So I think this is going to be more of a true test for Liberty Center. If they come out and steamroll Napoleon, then we'll know right where they're at for the year. But I think they're going to take the win either way. So I'm going to go with the Tigers.
Well, I went with the Tigers. I'm not sure if Parker Woods is going to be back this week. I think if he's not in, that's definitely a huge blow for Napoleon against Liberty Center. So I took the Tigers.
And Matthew had Liberty Center. Nick, who are you taking in Napoleon at Liberty Center?
Got to go with Liberty Center.
Next game, Bellevue 0-1 at Wauseon 0-1. Both teams coming in with a loss on the season. I don't know. Wauseon's kind of gone back to the wing T. I think they're still trying to, get everybody on the right ship this year. I think Bellevue is going to be too much for Wauseon at home. Hopefully Wauseon figures things out and figures them out soon, but I think Bellevue comes out with a win.
Bellevue.
I'm going to go with Bellevue as well.
I chose against you guys. I went with Wauseon. I'm hoping Wauseon rights the ship this week and gets a win at home.
Matthew picked Bellevue. Nick, who are you picking at Bellevue at Wauseon?
I'm going with Wauseon.
Okay. All right. Next game, Montpelier 0-1 at Woodmore 1-0. Woodmore's coming off a win against North Central, pretty big too. Montpelier is coming off a loss to Antwerp, which we all had Montpelier picked to beat Antwerp last week. I think Coach Robinson, I think he's going to get them on the right track. They have some good athletes over there, and I think Locomotives come out victorious.
Taking Montpelier, too much pride over there.
I actually just flipped. I think I'm going to go with Woodmore on this one.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, AJ, but now I'm going to stick with my pick, Montpelier.
Matthew had Montpelier. Nick, who are you picking Montpelier at Woodmore?
I'm going with Woodmore.
Columbus Grove 1-0 at Liberty Benton 1-0. Another really good game this week. Nick, you should know a lot about this one. But my pick, oh man, I had to think about this a little bit. That Liberty Benton team is pretty stacked. I know they have quite a few good athletes, the Elkert twins, and they can really throw the ball over there. My faith is in Columbus Grove. I think if they're going to have the season that they're destined to have, and everyone's believing that they're going to have. They have to win this one. They got to win the big games. I think they get it done. I think Coach Schaefer and the boys go over to Liberty Benton, and they come out with a win.
Yep, business trip for the Bulldogs, taking the dogs.
Yeah, let's go with Columbus Grove.
Yep, dogs for me.
Matthew had Columbus Grove. Nick, I think we know easy answer who you have in this one.
Go Dogs.
That's right. All right, next game. Defiance 0-1 at Wapakoneta 1-0. This is going to be a tough matchup for Defiance. I know Wapakoneta, I think they've got a tight end. He's a 3-star recruit committed to Louisville. So really good athlete that they're going to have to stop him somehow. But, I had to think about this one. I don't know. I think there's still some questions with Brez Zipfel being out. I know obviously Noah Gomez did a good job, solid job when he was in there versus Napoleon. I think Wapak's going to be too much. It's tough to win there too. I'm taking Wapakoneta.
A tough offense, tough defense, and you just hit the final nail, Logan. It's a tough place to win for a visiting team. Taking Wapak.
Yeah, I would love to see Defiance bounce back after the loss last week, but being at Wapak is going to be tough, so I'm going to go with Wapak.
Yep, I think the drive's going to be too much for Defiance. Wapak for me.
And Matthew had Wapakoneta. Nick, who you picking? Defiance at Wapakoneta.
I got to go with Wapak.
Couple other games, and we'll wrap things up here. Kenton 0-1 at Ottawa Glandorf 0-1. Kenton's on the uprising over the last couple of years. Can't remember who they just played last week. I just had read the box score, but it was close. It kind of shocked me a little bit. Ottawa Glandorf's been on the struggle bus the last couple of years. Give me Kenton.
I took OG.
I'm going to go with Kenton, but I'm not really sure on this one.
I took OG just because Keith took OG.
Matthew picked Kenton. Nick, who are you taking in Kenton at Ottawa Glandorf?
I got to go with Kenton until OG shows it.
Yep. Next game, Van Wert 1-0 at Lima Bath 0-1. Another interesting matchup. I know Van Wert's coming off a huge win versus Bryan. Bath is another program that's turned things around the last couple of years. It's at Bath. I think I'm gonna go with Lima Bath on this one.
I took the Van Wert Cougars.
Hey, I'm going to go with Van Wert here as well. I think they had a good win last week.
Yeah, Cougars all the way.
Matthew had Van Wert. Nick, who you picking? Van Wert at Bath.
Yeah, I got Van Wert also.
Next game, Lipsick 0-1 at Van Buren 1-0. Lipsick is coming off a tough loss. They had the lead at halftime last week. I think they correct things. Lipsick's a very prideful program. They always have a solid team. And I think they go into Van Buren and they come out with a win. I'm going Lipsick.
Yeah, too talented to start the 0-2, so taking Lipsick.
I'm going to go ahead and go with Van Buren here. See how Lipsick responds last week.
I took Van Buren.
And Matthew picked Van Buren. Nick, who are you taking in Lipsick at Van Buren?
I'm taking Van Buren.
And then the last two games, we have 8-man football. Looking at North Adams Jerome, Michigan at Stryker. This one, I think I don't know much about them. Obviously, we know Stryker had lost a few athletes, but being at home, I'm going to go Stryker and the boys.
Taking Stryker.
I think for most of the 8-man stuff, until they start playing each other, I'm going to stick with the coverage team. So I'm going to go with Stryker for this one.
Stryker.
Matthew had Stryker. Nick, who are you taking in North Adams Jerome at Stryker for 8-man?
I got Stryker.
And then the last game here, Holgate at Camden Frontier, Michigan. Holgate lost a lot of players. I know they lost Xavier McCord. I'm trying to think of who the other really good player was. Linebacker. I can't think of his name. Slipping my mind. But they lost a lot to graduation. Playing at Camden Frontier, a Michigan team. Don't know much about them yet. So I think I'm taking the home team, Camden Frontier.
I took Holgate.
Yep, going with the coverage team. So Holgate.
Yep, Holgate for me.
Matthew had Holgate. And Nick, who are you taking Holgate at Camden Frontier?
Got to take Holgate.
Solid. All right. Well, we will wrap things up here. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors. And thanks again, Nick, for calling on. Stay tuned. We'll be right back for our closing thoughts and final wrap-up.
Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. The Drop Zone Pizzeria is the #1 voted pizza restaurant in the region. Check them out for pizza, wings, subs, and more. Located in Ayersville and Stryker, or ask them about their traveling food trailer. Truland Equipment and Salesman Lauren Brown are your go-to for John Deere equipment in Archbold, Ohio. Mowers, compact tractors, skid loaders, and more. Your sales expert on commercial turf and CCE sales. Give Lauren a call today at 419-445-1565.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, we're here for closing thoughts, and we'll wrap things up. So, guys, obviously, I think we have a little bit of kinks to work out. I was trying to figure out things, and we went a little long tonight, but it's just going to get better as the season goes on. I just wanted to give a little bit more recognition to some of the teams with being off last week. So that's why we kind of covered all of them. But from here on out, we'll pick the bigger games. Obviously, blowouts, there's not much to talk about. So we know that from broadcasting them, too. You got to kind of come up with other things. So we'll definitely condense the podcast in the future. But week 2 is coming up. Week 1's in the books. Thoughts going into this Friday?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of these teams that come away with victories week 1, Antwerp, Fairview, see how they respond week 2. See if they're going to be for real this season, or if if week 1 was a fluke.
Yeah, and some of the top matchups we have for our rankings, see where they match up with Napoleon and Liberty Center and a few others. Those teams matching up, see where they actually place.
For me, as we talked about during our intro, really is how did teams prepare for Friday night with the warm conditions? Like how much cramping are we going to see on Friday and just stuff like that, how teams work through this week. We had several teams, I think Archbold practiced this morning, and I think Napoleon may have been one as well that practiced before school. They practiced under the lights, but it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I think that's great because when you go into the gym and do walkthroughs, it's not the same as a Tuesday practice. A Tuesday practice is literally the meat and potatoes of your practice schedule of the week.
You're kind of live.
Typically, Monday is always kind of, at least at Tenor and a lot of other programs, Monday is always kind of your walkthrough. Tuesday is first full day of pads. Wednesday is another good day of pads. Thursday, you're in uppers, and Friday's game time. So I think that's awesome that a lot of these teams can go out there and get to practice in a good quality practice where you can do a little bit of hitting before the sun comes up, and it's a nice controlled, cooler environment. So
I just want to worry about whether we're going to cramp up setting up Friday night.
What's the temp? Is it supposed to be as hot as Friday as it is
highs
today?
in the low 90s.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be about the same temperature. I'm going to have to bring a change of clothes because I'm going to be soaked in sweat.
I'm 100% bringing a fan when we're broadcasting Friday. If not, I'll be dripping all over the place. So, I think that'll be huge as how teams prepare this week. And not only that, but the players prepare in terms of hydration and nutrition. And we talked about that at the beginning of the podcast, but that can make all the difference in who wins or loses. And, every little advantage that you can get throughout the week and the season, it pays off. So I think I'm really excited for a lot of the matchups. A couple of the big ones, like we said, the NWA Sports Game of the Week, Liberty Center Napoleon. I wish I could be at that one. And then Fairview Delta. Talk about a game that's going to tell a lot for, possibly how the rest of the season is going to go for both programs. So,
make sure athletes that are listening drink lots of water the next couple of days. Don't forget to, eat as well. Eat healthy. A lot of, fruits and stuff like that with, like potassium, bananas, things like that to get some of the healthy salts in so we actually absorb the water. Because if you start chugging water, you're just going to pee it out and it's not even going to do you any good. So make sure you're eating healthy. A little tip from healthcare there.
Coming from the nutritionist.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well, we'll wrap things up here. First, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, BSN Sports, and thank them for being our primary sponsor, Optimal Performance Fitness, Marco's Pizza, Remax Realty of Defiance, Bat & Stevens Body Shop, Burkholder Taxidermy, DeLarber Concrete and Hauling, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, Drop Zone Pizzeria, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, NWO Basketball, Truland Equipment, and Lauren Brown. Again, we thank all those sponsors that make this possible. Without it, we wouldn't be able to continue to upgrade and make this thing better and better each year. So special thanks to all those. We'd also like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for always allowing us to use his amazing facility at Bat & Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.